Friends, good evening to every one of you. Welcome you to the day 2 of Tech Conclave 2020. Today we have an interesting sessions lined up. First session where our moderator CA Pattabhiram will be having a chat with CFO of Flipkart, Shri Sakait Chaudhary, followed by IDPR, Indian Data Protection Bill by R. Chandrasekhar Ji, and on cyber security by CA Praveen Kumar. In fact, they say technology changes quickly, but organizations changes much slowly. We could see a vast difference thanks to the COVID. They have kind of, automatically made it go faster. And one more quote I keep remembering is the biggest impediment to organization's future success is past success. Many a time they are in their comfort zone. They don't want to take risk, especially chartered accountants. They are worried about the cost, the confidentiality, losing of data. Friends, the moment you have an Android phone today, your privacy is almost gone. So it is within that boundary how safe you play and how much of data at one time you are getting exposed. Outside is only the challenge. Maybe once the work is over, you pull back the data and don't expose it. That's how we have to kind of invest in technology. And all the newer areas which are coming, I will request everybody to kind of think whichever could help you in your own levels, be it blockchain, AI, or RPA. Now, having said that, don't just invest in it because you want to use those newer technologies. I still remember one of our older faculty, CA Pradeep Kapoor, telling that if you can just manage with a tablet, you don't have to go to a doctor to manage with that. But yes, where it is required, kindly do that. And there has been now a lot of advertisements on learn the coding. Friends, for professionals, it is not necessary to learn the codings. In fact, they are telling that 5-year, 6-year kids should be learning the coding actually. It is not so. We must drive a car and exactly know when to call a mechanic. That is just enough for us. But we should definitely know, the basics as to things which are there where the mechanic does not kind of fool around with you. So that we have to take care. And second, they say to predict the future, study the past. Now that is a contradiction of my first statement. But let me tell you, friends, you cannot ignore the past as well. You will have to analyze and take proper decisions based on what has been there behind you. And very importantly, whatever you do, you kindly see that there is a value addition to your clients in whatever way you could. I still remember when computers came, they said all the human beings are, the employees are going to be jobless. But today, actually, we are struggling to manage our time with the kind of work which has gone up. So things have kind of been, and we are ever occupied. And I remember, according to our Hindu beliefs, Lord Shiva is the most powerful of Trinity, and he is supposed to be the destroyer. Now we must appreciate that he does not destroy for the heck of it. Chalo, let's destroy this. He destroys to create. So for every transformation, destruction is compulsory. So I'll only request that you please come out of this so that you're able to kind of do better things. And when I say this thing, destroy your old style of working, come out of your comfort zone, and very importantly, embrace technology. Because if you are not going to embrace technology, I keep telling you are going to be embarrassed about. So this Tech Conclave is just an idea for us to know the newer things around you. And now and then we will definitely keep more programs whenever that suits our professional needs. So our first speaker today, Shri Sakait Chaudhary will be joining us shortly. So I'll request the Abhishek to make the announcements for the forthcoming programs, and then we'll we'll request CA Pattabhiram to share his thoughts. Abhishek, over to you.
Thank you. A very warm good afternoon to all the participants who have joined in today. A very warm good afternoon to the chairman of SIRC, the dynamic CA Dugarshan Jain, my guru and the moderator for today, CA Pattabhiram sir, and of course the panelists will be joining shortly. As the chairman rightly said, our panelist is expected to join soon. So before he joins, we thought we would share the announcements for the program that we've got lined up this month. Very, very excellent speakers, excellent programs we've got lined up. And on 13th of October, that is 13th of October at 6 p.m., it's a Tuesday, we have a session on TCS on supply of goods and the recent circular. There's a lot of confusion here. It's a very, very amendment which has come into effect from October. So we have got CA Dr. Girish Ahuja addressing 15th of October on TCS and supply. On 15th of October, session. It's an interactive session on FAQs in tax audit. As you're aware, as of now, 31st October is the last date for the tax audit. The extension has not yet been announced. So as auditors, we must definitely be prepared and start filing the tax audit reports for our clients. So in this process, a lot of questions have come up, a lot of doubts we have been getting. So we thought we'll organize a program just for that. We have circulated a Google form where you can submit what doubts you have so that the speaker can take it up on that day. So on 15th of October, it's a Thursday at 6 p.m. We have FAQs in tax audit. CA V Ramnath from Coimbatore will be the speaker. On 17th of October, it's a Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. We have a session on setting up an effective internal audit practice. We have a leading speaker from Mumbai, CA Nandita Parekh, who will be taking this session, followed by from 19th to 22nd of October. It's a 3-day course. We have a refresher course on accounting standards, and a lot of eminent speakers we have got lined up. We'll be sharing those details also shortly with you. Then, of course, we have one more program on 24th of October and one more on 6th year memorial session on inward and consequences. We have one speaker, Dr. Aravind Subramaniam, you know him as the Chief Economic Advisor, the former Chief Economic Advisor, and he's a product university. He'll be addressing on November 6th. We have also lined up excellent refresher course we'll be having on the international taxation and transfer pricing, because that deadline is be coming up shortly. So due to that, we have got that program lined up again. The dates will be announced. And I have to definitely announce, we've also fixed the dates for our 52nd regional conference of SIRC of ICAI. It's going to be in the virtual mode that we are sitting in today. And that is fixed on 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th of December. So 4 dates are there, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. So on Thursday to Sunday, I request everybody to do register and support us in this program. It's the first ever virtual regional conference program that's being conducted. So we request everybody to participate and do support. And please do share your suggestions also as to what you would like us to cover, not only in the regional conference, but also in our general programs. So thank you all. I'm now looking forward to hearing from Pattabhiram sir. I always say, as a student, when I used to come back from his classes, I will not have any notes, because he is such a beautiful speaker and very eloquent, very articulate. You just keep listening to him. You forget that you have to take notes for the exam. So I'm sure that he's going to give another spellbinding session now, and he'll be moderating, of course, the speaker who will be joining us shortly. But before that, we requested him to share a few words.
Pattabhi sir, you will have to unmute, sir. One second, sir. I'll do it for you. 1 second, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Abhishek, and thank you, DC. I must tell you that just before we started off, I was telling both Abhishek and DC that in the last few days, I've actually forgotten how to speak, because I've only been either interviewing or getting interviewed. And I thought I'll have a happy time today just chatting up with Sakait. But then now Abhishek says, I must speak. I hope it's not until Sakait comes. Anyway, I just first thought I'll make a couple of quick points on what both the chairman and secretary made. I think chairman was bang on when he said, don't get into coding. I've just an additional point. Don't push your kids at 6 years to coding. Our kids at 6 years are expected to love life, and I'm very serious about it. They're expected to get a feel of how things around them are. In most parts of the world, children go to school at the age of 6. In Denmark, for instance, kids go to school at the age of 6. In many other countries of the world, that's how it works. It's a tad sad that in our country, we push our children to school at 2, 2.5. So I don't know, that change will take a lot of time to come, but definitely there is no need for a child to do coding unless he's terribly interested with that. Just that point. Second one, I was also impressed by what BC said about how technology is changing the way that we live, how it's very important for us to know to drive. And I like that example where he said, you must know when to call the mechanic. If you also want to become a mechanic, that's fine. But if you don't have the skill set to become a mechanic, you don't have to become a mechanic. Now, this is not to say that technology guys are mechanics, car mechanics, but if you must know when to call them. That's absolutely right. In that context, I think when Abhishek was saying that there is a program on TCS for a second, or maybe for 2 seconds, I thought, what is Tata Consulting Services doing here? And then it took me, of course, that's because of my very, very poor understanding of tax. Then it took me a couple of seconds to understand that he was actually talking about tax collection at source. Anyway, the world of technology has completely changed the way that we accountants have chosen to lead our lives. IT was once associated with income tax. Today, it's associated with information technology. There are lots of things. I think Sakait has come. He has saved the day for me. So in maybe another 30 seconds, we'll get started with him. A lot of things are happening, obviously, on the e-commerce front. I still remember long years ago, 1999, maybe when Amazon first came in, bamboozled all of us by being the first, bookstore on cybersecurity, on cyberspace. And I was amazingly thrilled when I found, I don't know whether it was in 1999 or maybe a couple of years later, I was amazingly thrilled when I went to buy a book and it said, hey, this is a book that Bill Clinton has read. Today, all of that is passé. Today, all of that is hygiene factor. Today, all of that is taken for granted. We have moved a long distance from 1999 to today. We have moved an absolutely long distance. We are living in very, very exciting times. And a lot of that excitement has got to do with internet. A lot of that excitement has got to do with e-commerce. We have Sakait Chaudhary, CFO, Flipkart, and I'm very, very eager to be talking to him.
Hi, guys.
Abhishek, you want to do some preliminaries?
We'll request Abhishek to introduce the speaker formally and then you can take over, sir.
Thank you so much, Pattabhiram sir. As always, again, if I speaking. So now I have the privilege of introducing our session guest who has joined in today, Mr. Sakait Chaudhary. He's got a very, very long profile and he has specifically requested his team said, you please keep it brief. So I'm just going to pick out the main, highlights from it. I hope I have not missed out anything. He's a graduate from the very, very famous Shri College of Commerce, New Delhi. After that, he did his master's in Warwick Business School, the University of Warwick, and then studied in the London School of Economics and Political Science, where he did his MS in Finance and Economics. After that, he is also a professional. He did his CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountancy from London in 2001. And then he's joined very, very leading companies, including the General Electric Group, Grace Enterprises. He joined the Bharati Airtel Group. He worked for some in Air for some time, followed by Tata Communications Limited, and to Flipkart. Now he's heading the role as the Chief Financial Officer for Flipkart for more than 5 years now. It's a true pleasure to have him with us. As you're all aware, it's part of an organization. Indians and sucks. And remember, the big billion day sale was on back. I don't think it was more than 5 years back. In fact, that was the real turning point as far as e-commerce is concerned. And then still was a large Flipkart primary who changed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abhishek, such kind words. Really appreciate that. And it's my privilege to be among all of you and speak to lot many of us, right, who inspire to do much bigger and better things in life. It's absolutely, it's one of those times, and in those busy days of life, right, when you look forward to speak to those young, talented, right, people, who's going to define a lot of future for this country. Right? Absolutely amazing. Thanks very much.
Yeah, in fact, Abhishek, when I did contact Sakait, I wanted him to take a technical session. It is some big billion sale which is coming, and he said it will not be possible for me to genuinely prepare things. So I said we'll not leave him, but kind of change the mode as per his request. Pattabhiram sir, over to you, please.
Thank you, Welcome, Sakait. At the outset, I must tell you that 4 days back, I had put out on social media that I'm going to interview the CFO of Flipkart. And I told them you can send in your questions. Between social media and this mobile of mine, I received 87 messages, 87 questions. I shortlisted 20 of them. Maybe we'll ask you 10, 12 questions. If you find, I know you won't, but if you find some of those questions disconcerting, you should know whom to put your finger at, okay? Not me, all right? So these questions are all from the Chartered Accounting Fraternity. I'm just acting as the middleman between, honest middleman, between them and you. First up, let's begin with a loosener. How is it to be in the finance function, first of a telecom company and now of an e-commerce company? Does the role of a finance person same across verticals, across, what should I say, industry? Are the skills fungible, or do you require different skills in different industries?
First, thank you very much. Really appreciate, right, you doing this hard work on behalf of God knows how many brilliant kids, right, who's about to become big in life. Yes, coming back to your question, I fundamentally believe, see, the way I have been thinking in my life, right, finance guys are, very, very instrumental in solving many problems in any organization. To me, finance and many other functions like finance are actually industry agnostic. The way I think as finance professional, okay, and I'll be very candid. I have not prepared any notes, so don't worry about it. I'll speak from my mind, actually. That's how I think. Anybody who's doing finance, the finance is in our DNA, right? We don't need to learn how P&L balance sheets are done, right? I think the real value of finance guy gets created and gets added in any organization to a shareholder, to your consumer, is when you start understanding the problem, right? And start co-owning a business. Now, when you're in telecom, I think my learning and my experience were very different. I really understood, I don't know how many of you know in Bharti, we were the first one to start the concept of earning per minute, right? We used, I will not go too technical in it, but my bent of mind has always been understanding business very, very deep. It has always allowed me to contribute more. And when I moved to e-commerce, I felt it's a whole different world, okay? In e-commerce, if in telecom we are, an infrastructure or say a technology plays 30% role, I think e-commerce is all about technology. Okay. Understanding the domain and depth of the technology and contributing to a business, right, by understanding that deeper is something, right, is which I've enjoyed, is some difference which I found, and I think is something which I've learned over 5 years at Flipkart. I still do a lot of it. But yes, I think telecom helped me building that first stone, okay, in my mind about it.
Okay, Sakait. Today there's a lot of talk about corporate social responsibilities.
Yeah.
Milton Friedman long ago said that the only responsibility of a business is to make profits. I don't think that's an argument that today people are willing to buy, at least in our country. What, according to you, should be the social responsibility of a e-commerce company?
I think it's a brilliant question, by the way. To me, and I think it's everybody in Flipkart, by the way, we do believe by creating a disproportionate value to our consumer, okay, by reaching every corner of this country, by bringing the cost of doing business down for billion and billion of sellers, right, is what we feel at Flipkart is the biggest, biggest thing we are trying to solve in this concept in India. At no point of time, our boardroom conversations are ever about profitability. I think our boardroom conversations are all about customer experience. How will we reach the last mile in India? How will we ensure that every Indian gets the greatest value in what we offer? Now, value can come either from, value is not price, okay? The way we look at value is about consumer experience. Value is about the infinite selection which we'll bring to a consumer in those tier 3, 4, 5 towns where the India lives, right, is bringing the selection and affordability prices by digitalizing, by easy pay, easy AMIs.
Okay, Sakait, I do agree that you bring a lot of variety to people. You bring a lot of choice to people. With your discount model, you have actually kept prices significantly down. But what happens to those several small businessmen, the Kirana shop? Do they matter, or do you think they don't matter?
I think they absolutely matter. Okay, to us, we believe in Flipkart, and every day we solve at Flipkart, right? I think we actually solving for them. For us, those corner shops, those e-kiranas, which we call ourselves now, our effort, our thought, right, and I think 70% or 80% of energy of entire technology folks, right, have been how do we enable them to come and sell at Flipkart. See what we do. What we do here is, what are we trying to solve for them? We are trying to solve first a reach for them, right? Two, cost of doing business, which is very, very expensive for them. Now, cost of business here is about the kind of inventory. Let me explain this. It's a very pertinent, very important question, okay, which you have raised, and at least I feel morally accountable to answer that with a lot of honesty. Assume that there's a Kirana or a Kirana corner shop in India, okay, and what is his daily struggles? To me, there are 4 things he's struggling in his life. One, his first and foremost important thing is his cost of doing business has to come down. Now, what does it mean by cost of doing business? Can he do today keep a selection, right, which can have an eyeball of 30 crore Indians, right? Is it possible for him? The answer is no. Does he have a reach, right? Even if he has an eyeball to get there, the answer is no. The third one, and the most efficient one is, can I bring him a scale, right, which can help him get a better intake margins, which he can then start giving back to the consumer. And it's an ecosystem, right? That's how the scale happens in the business.
Are you saying you're therefore doing an aggregator's job?
No, I don't think we're doing an aggregator's job, right? We are doing an enabling function job. We are enabling the larger sellers, okay, in this country to live up, to solve for their problems and live their dreams by using technology at the back end, right, to solve for many of those problems.
All right. I come into an area which is the subject of most questions.
Mm-hmm.
In case it is something that you would not want to answer, I will fully appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How would you, if you were to pick up a company like yours or a smaller entity like yours, which is making losses, significant losses, how do you go ahead and value that and pay money for that? I'll just give you an example. 20 years back, when e-commerce first came in, the question that we all asked was that, oh, it's future cash flows that matter. Where are the future cash flows? We can't judge. How do I make a valuation? People said, look, the rules of valuations have changed. And when we asked people as to what then are the new rules of valuation, some of them very flippantly said, the rules of valuation have changed, but there are no new ones. Now, how do you go ahead and value a company and at such eye-popping numbers?
Look, I don't have a liberty to talk about that bit, right? I'll refrain from that. But I do believe, okay, in my mind, to me, it's not a valuation conversation, okay? To me, it's about solving what you want to solve for India. Let me give you a different example about it, okay? We do get, get into this conversation. Think of any business in the world, and you feel free to yourself, right? And you have a phenomenal experience. No business in this world, right, can reach a scale without doing, right, investment, which could be respect to infrastructure, scalability. I think the way we have to start reading the business, right, in my mind is, right, what do I see 10 years out in my 10 years, P&L of the business, right? Any business in the world, be it in auto industry, any capital intensive business, right, you can pick up, right? Because we often talk about, IRRs, God knows, right? I'm not going to get in that conversation. Is how businesses are built. Some businesses if they're not very capital incentive, you see a better, operating profits coming faster. Some businesses are very capital incentive. You have to wait for a longer time for a certain threshold to come for those businesses to turn EBITDA, EBITDA positive, PAT positive, right? I think the way to think about this in my mind is, what is your vision? What are you trying to solve for? And when you solve what you want to solve for, I think these financials, these valuations, are an output, a byproduct of it. But I think at Flipkart, our value and our vision has largely been staying about solving problems for both consumers and sellers in this country.
All right, fair enough. You have had promoters who have really been innovative, at least as far as the Indian scene was concerned. Mm-hmm. What are the kinds of innovation that a finance professional can bring to business?
I think very interesting question. Okay, before becoming a CFO of Flipkart, I was heading the supply chain. Okay, in Flipkart, I felt, and I do believe till today, it was one of the most important learnings I had in my life, right, about how technology, right, can play a very important role. And I'll come to your very specific question on this. When you understand business very, very deeply, okay, how can you as a finance professional contribute to it? Let me give you a perspective to it. Today, right, think as a consumer, right, when you come to a Flipkart site, we promise, that we will deliver you in 3 days, right? And for now to ensure that and there are certain times, founded at times, unfounded, problems, right, which the entire logistic business of, a company might see, a logistic partner will see, where you're not able to deliver, right, the promise which you made to your consumer, and it leads to a bad experience. Now, there are 2 ways of looking at that, right, in my mind. Because a finance guy, right, typically look at the numbers. He has 2 ways of solving that problem. Either I reach to my consumer and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I couldn't deliver what I promised, and there were some problems and challenges behind my control, and respectfully either give him token of apology or say sorry and move on, or go deeper in the business and see that what is that behavior I need to drive in my entire value chain, right, by incentivizing my last touch point, right, of ensuring that despite all odds, right, can I make any mechanism, right, which is very, very consumer centric, to help him achieve what needs to be done in the interest of my consumer and still make a win-win value prop to your consumer, right? What it means is, if as a finance guy, right, you are looking at, the cost of not servicing what you promised to consumer is disproportionate, right? Now it's not a financial cost, right? It has a lot to do. It has a financial component, but I think it's more about future growth, because a bad experience also leads to, a consumer not coming to your platform, and stuff like that. The flip of it is, can I have an incentive structure, right, where if I see that I'm able to I'm able to give a superior experience to X consumer, and his wallet share in business, right, will increase multiple X in next 5 years or 2 years or 3 years, right? What is the kind of investment should I think about? Is it a good money or a bad money to spend? I think that's a value finance guys bring in the room.
All right. I will have to give you a small background before I put forth my next question. On the road where I live, 20 kilometers from my place is the Hyundai factory. Mm-hmm. In a Hyundai factory, inside the factory complex, only Hyundai cars can be parked. You can come in a BMW, you'll have to park it on the road. Mm-hmm. A friend of mine, a client of mine, we went for dinner once. He works in Coke. By mistake, I asked him, will you have Pepsi? He simply stood up from the chair and said, no Pepsi, no. I will only have Coke. Mm-hmm. My question to you is, have you bought products at Amazon?
Okay, that's an interesting one, right? I think I would have in certain categories when we were not present in those businesses, to be honest, I would have. I think, but today, with the way I treat, okay, for me, it's an ecosystem conversation. It's not about Flipkart and Amazon, okay? To us, right, as business, it is what do we service together in the ecosystem? What do we give every Indian back, right, is what I do.
No, that's okay.
I would have, if as a Flipkart, we don't have it, but today, actually, I use them to the positive. I ride a cycle in the morning. I was telling my son, it's a very interesting conversation. I'll give a different answer to this conversation.
Okay.
Right? I bike in the morning, okay, few kilometers. Now, when I see somebody is moving, at a certain pace, there are two ways people look at the data. Okay, one way of looking at data is I want to beat him down. Okay, the other way to look at the data is
Sakait, I will allow you to complete the answer, but my question is straight. Will you today buy from Amazon?
No.
All right. Now go ahead. Your cycle example was appearing to be interesting, so go ahead.
Yeah, we don't, right? I rather wait, right? If I don't have it and get the selection on the platform, right? I was coming to that actually.
Okay.
I'd rather get that selection on my platform, right? By rallying around the business, because we solve for every consumer need in the business. And that's what we do.
It's good. I like that. All right. I read very recently that there is some talk about Flipkart being listed on the New York Stock Exchange sometime in 2021, unless that is what should I say? Because that information I saw on in the public domain. Is there a plan that Flipkart would get listed in India?
I regret I don't have a liberty to speak on this.
Okay, no problem. Absolutely understand. You have some views on FDI in e-commerce multi-brand retail?
It's a very vast topic, right? I'm not sure what are we, and we can speak hours, we can speak for days, right? I don't know what are you typically
Okay, go ahead.
The way only we look at it, right? Everything which will make my consumer, okay, a happy consumer is what I care for. Is what we care for at Flipkart. I don't think any of us in Flipkart really go that path, right? How do we create more value, a better experience for our consumer is what are we solving it? That is all I care for.
All right. We will move on to a completely different thing. There are lots of young CAs. I'm sure today also there must be 20, 25, if not more percentage of people with less than 5 years post-qualification. What do you think is one or two very, very important skill that you would like them to possess? And after that, I'll tell you one very straight question one guy has put out to me just now.
Okay. I think the most important skill is understanding and owning business more than a business owns. Okay, is something which every finance guy should try to solve in his life. If he understands business, and I'll tell you why it is so important. Okay? Finance guys have a deep understanding of the fabric of a P&L. Okay? Business guys typically are solving for the growth of a business. The value which you will bring by understanding business more and co-owning a business, I'm using a very conscious word, co-owning a business, okay, is that you will be able to allow the business to grow disproportionately, but in a very efficient and profitable. You will be able to bring more outside in view, right, to your co-partner to tell him, I feel if we go this path, right, this will not only allow us to grow efficiently, right, but this will also solve our 2 years problem. This will also allow me to solve for my consumer. I really feel if that is the way you approach a problem, right? P&L is an outcome of what you design, right? P&L is, many people, right, index on P&L too much. I index on what problem I'm solving. If I have a conviction I'm solving a problem which will solve for good and will solve for a long-term view, I'm fairly confident at any given point of time I'm solving.
Right. I guess this is at a reasonably middle to senior level. At an entry level, what would you look at if somebody wants to join Flipkart?
I think the passion, what I look for is an absolute passion, a high accountability, a very, very high accountability, right? And a desire to solve for Indian ecosystem, right, is something which everybody who comes to Flipkart, in my mind, at whatever level, entry level, it even makes more sense, right? Because these guys are really glued to data. They really can make disproportionate impact by doing a phenomenal analytical analysis, right, of data by that thought.
All right. What is one major concern that you have as a CFO? I'm not talking about with reference to Flipkart. Generally, as a CFO, what is one major concern that you have?
To be honest,
Any CFO should have.
I think the only, well, to me, it's it will be unfair for me to comment on any CFO, right? Every CFO thinks differently, every human thinks differently, right? To me, the only thing is, are we solving enough, okay, for consumer in this country is something which bothers me. And I'll tell you why because it comes from very vision, right, of all of us as a management team and company. Right? For us, and you can go to Sachin and Benny. I don't know how many have spoken to him. I was very, in my earlier part, I was doing a couple of fun days with them, and I was really very influenced with Sachin and Benny. I think at no point of time I can vouch for both of them. And now with the management of Flipkart and Walmart, I think every conversation is only about the customer, our consumer, what value, how much can we get him, what sellers, how can we make their life easier. I think that's the only concern. That's the only worry which we keep thinking every now and then. How will we make it better tomorrow? How will we make it better 2 years out? What do we need to do? Investments today, right? To allow them to scale disproportionately, right? And our consumers to have a great value.
All right. Abhishek, are there any questions that you think of the audience we must pick up?
You can continue, sir. I request the audience also to the speaker today. You can proceed, Pattabhiram, sir, as and when it comes later on when you're taking a break.
Are you at liberty to say what are some of the good businesses that there are today? Good businesses as in innovative businesses of the kind that one looked at Flipkart 2007, 2008, when they first came in. Are there today somebody who will, in your opinion, become the next Flipkart? No, I don't like that phrase, but next big outfit.
Again, this I don't know. Like,
okay, business ideas. All right, we'll change it. Any business ideas you think that can catch up in the next 5-7 years?
I think one big space is in my mind is going to be a digital payment. Two, organized logistics. Okay, these are big ideas where India is still very early. Okay, to me, digital payment solutions. Okay, is one big thing which is going to be a very, very interesting chapter in India for next 20-30 years. I think equally important when we speak about solving a consumer problem. India has a very, very fragmented logistic today. If you want to touch every consumer in India, every seller in India, I do believe a very organized logistics in this country will play a very meaningful role, right? Going forward, not only for e-commerce, I think for the entire retail industry. And if you go and study the evolution of any e-commerce across China, US, all right. So there are three phases in my mind which I keep reading data about, right? One is first there's internet penetration, right, which is absolutely important, right, for any e-commerce business to or any digitalization to happen in the world. I think second, equally important, is the logistic infrastructure of that country, right? I might have a digitally, penetrated 100% India, but if I don't have an infrastructure, right, which allows me to reach every touch point in this country in a very efficient manner, right, I will never be able to achieve the scale I want to do it in this manner. Those are the very important points which I keep thinking in my mind.
Now, in the context of the digital divide that there is in India, to what extent can these e-commerce entities really penetrate to areas that really matter? Yes, cities are fine, metros are fine, but deep down, how has business been coming in?
Well, I think the next 10 years, right, or 20 years of growth is all about tier 3, 4, 5 towns.
Okay.
It's a curve, right, which you go through. I think when we all start business, right, you want to start a business which is affordable in metro, then you span to tier 1. And if you see a consumer, okay, consumer also have 3 cycles in his life. First is adoption, right? Typically, a top 10% of GDP per capita consumers, right, try to come on e-commerce platform. That's the history of anywhere in the world. Then is a massification of consumer, right? Which I'm, in my mind, I call the next 200 million consumers. Where are they going to come from? To me, they're going to come from tier 3, 4, 5 towns. And then is the adoption of that massification, which I say is, when I come to a platform, right, I transact 2 times in a year. There'll be a state, right, where I will transact 20 times in a year. Now, to enable that for me to be 20 times on the platform, I need first the kind of selection I care for, and to the reach, right, which is can I deliver you, right, the remotest in the farthest India, right? I think those are those are the important things for us as for any e-commerce player in the world.
All right. This is a natural question that had to come up. A lot of things have happened in the last 6 months. The pandemic, of course, has helped us, to put it very crudely, move on to technology the way that we might not have at all done in the past. I cannot foresee, for example, the SIRC doing an online webinar of this kind, but for COVID. So I'm coming to the question as to how much has COVID impacted business at Flipkart or at the economy level?
Look, I think from e-commerce perspective, forget about Flipkart. Okay,
correct. E-commerce perspective.
I do believe that COVID has provided an opportunity to each one of us from business perspective. I think a technology-driven company like Flipkart, and for that matter, Amazon, or anybody you can pick, right, in the ecosystem, I do believe they were very instrumental, right, to allowing million of sellers, those corner shop retailers whose businesses were virtually right off, help them give a very good head start. And we have seen a phenomenal movement of those businesses, those adoptions, which were not in pre-COVID world, which we would have thought would take us 12 months or 16 months to come. They've allowed us to, fast track, right, the entire ecosystem to 6 months, right, from earlier to 12 months. It has also allowed us, in similar spirit, to our consumers, right, the kind of reach, right, else, right. Think of a situation. My wife never used to do a grocery shopping, by the way, online. I think ever since COVID has happened, she's never stepped out and, she's adapted to a grocery, right. I think these are the kind of problems, right, we have been solving, right. And that's what COVID has done to all of us. And in this very honest answer, we have also continuously worked very hard to solve the cost of doing businesses for those guys. We've been very innovative about how do I also not provide him business, but how can I make him a co-owner as a logistic partner, right, to service my consumer and allow him to generate more revenue, right, in these difficult times. I think it's been a very innovative time to all of us.
DC, you want to ask something before I ask him a couple of final questions? Abhishek? All right. What are the kind of challenges you think we are going to face in the coming times?
Look, I'm a positive thinker. Actually, I see challenges as opportunities, so I don't worry too much on challenges in my life. The only worry and opportunity which I see, right, is how will we ensure that those million of sellers, right, who are not onboarded, right, and who will see some slower recovery, okay, from offline businesses, how can we enable them through technology to come on our platforms, right, to allow them to fast track, right, their slowness in their businesses is something we worry for. I think the second level of opportunity which we continuously think about is how faster can we expand our reach, right, over the next few years, right, to reach every corner of India. I think we are fairly pretty much in most of the tier 3, 4, 5 towns, 6 towns. How many more categories can we add on the platform, right, to ensure that our consumer gets a bigger basket, right, of selection is kind of things we keep thinking, right, and we find them as true opportunities, right, from a market perspective.
Are there any growth numbers that you would like to share with us in terms of what percentages growths are being contemplated?
Unfortunately, no. We are a privately held company.
No issue. Absolutely none whatsoever. Thank you very much, Sakait. That was very, very nice of you to answer our many questions. Equally nice of you.
Abhishek, there are two questions we can take up. Abhishek, you can ask the questions which have come in the chat box.
Yeah, sure. I'll read out the questions.
Yeah, I'm not able to see it here. Or maybe DC,
Yeah.
I think.
Ajit Prasad asked, how can...
I think I could
Yes,
read the
sir.
question. Okay, how can we avoid unnecessary packing material which are harmful to the environment? So as Flipkart, I think we also, I think we have already spoken about it. In the larger world, that Flipkart is committed, okay, towards zero plastic packing, or which we call it, right, or moving towards 100% sustainable environment friendly policy. I think we are one of the top objectives, I think, as among many others, which our CEO drives today, and is very, very passionate about it, is how do we ensure that I think he gave us a target of, if I'm not wrong, of March 21 or June 21 to make 100% environment friendly packing. Okay, I think because of COVID, we have faced certain issues, but I think we are 100% committed. Every day we work about it, we think about it. We have done very, very localized innovations within Flipkart. I don't know how many of you understand, but there's a when we do, earlier we used to do a bubble wrap, right, to prevent damages. Now we have used trashed cardboards, and we have created a net which we use today to pack, and we don't use poly bag. I don't know how many would say. We are very, very slowly eliminating a lot of poly bags. We're going to 100% carton and biodegradable use of packing material. Our endeavor is also to see how can we do a lot of e-com ready packaging to ensure that there's no secondary packaging at all, right? To ensure that that's another lever we continuously looking in Flipkart to solve that. Walmart is a big giant in retail space in US for many years. How does Flipkart fit into Walmart business model, and is there plans to launch it in other markets where Walmart is present? Also, whether the current valuation e-commerce space is sustainable. I think the way we look at it is right. Walmart has been extremely helpful and a guiding force behind Flipkart. They don't interfere in any day-to-day conversations with us. We have our own strategy. We have very, very autonomous management at Flipkart, and I think, to be honest, we couldn't ask for better shareholders than Walmart. They are here to help us for everything we need, but they only come and help when we need it. They have never had come in that journey for 2 years. I think they have been over 2 years, little over 2 years now. I think that's how we operate from business perspective. We are very, very autonomous, independent management, guided, and we seek any help, any advice as and when needed. But I think we have otherwise our own paths to walk, and they have been extremely supportive and kind in allowing us to do this journey. I think the second part, whether current valuation e-commerce space is sustainable, I will refrain from commenting. I don't go the path of valuation very often. It's not how I.
Thank you very much, Sakait. It was nice hearing your multiple views on multiple questions. I appreciate the fact that you took most of our questions. I also understand and appreciate the fact that there are some questions that you didn't want to take. Overall, I think personally, to me, it was a very, very enjoyable experience. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks very much for your time. Really appreciate that. Stay safe, guys. And do come back and shop at Big Billions Day at Flipkart. We look forward to each one of you. Right? Together, we'll make a better India. That's what I can tell each one of you.
Sakait, just please stay back for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, the message is very clear that the CFO now has to be a chief solutions officer rather than just managing finances. That's the clear message Sakait has given. Yeah, Abhishek, over to you for a well-deserved vote of thanks, both for the moderator as well as the speaker.
Yeah, thank you so much. Session as well, beautifully moderated by Pattabhiram sir. I think a lot of inputs that you shared were very useful, and be it young members or senior members, I think we have a lot to take away. And as Chairman very rightly said, the critical thing that I probably noted is a person coming from the background that you have. You've got accountants and many finance professionals. We tend to focus on the numbers. We tend to focus on the law. We miss the sight of the business. I think further reinforce the belief that we need to learn to add value to the business rather than just add value to the numbers. So I think that is quite useful, and I think we'll definitely work on that. And we gave a lot of insights on the e-commerce as well. Thank you so much. And of course, needless to say, Pattabhiram sir, he is always our go-to person when we have to go for moderation. His background being a chartered accountant, and despite that, he is in the journalism. He's into authoring books. He's into interviews. So he's a true person who wears multiple hats. And he gave yet another very well-researched and a wonderful interview. Thank you so much, Pattabhiram sir, for moderating today's session and bringing out the value for chartered accountants.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Jan. Thank you, Praveen.
Yeah, thanks.
Sheikh, really appreciate, it was absolutely fantastic being with you guys. Like I said, stay safe, and we look forward to you guys shopping, right? Bye-bye. See you guys.
Bye. Yeah, we move on to session 2. I think Chandrasekhar sir did join and he is disconnected. Maybe I've just asked Selva to call him and check again so that we could. Abhishek, I think we can introduce the speaker meantime.
Yes, I'll take this opportunity to introduce the speaker for the next session. We have with us our own professional, CA R Chandrasekhar from Chennai. He's a fellow member of the ICAI, and he's a certified information systems auditor, a CISA, an advanced SOC certified from AICPA USA. He's a certified information center. He's got the BS 1112 from GDPR, ISO 27001 lead auditor, the various other numbers like this which are there, certifications, BS 25999, a PGD in cybercrime and information security. He's a PGD in the cyber law, and more than 15 years experience in information security audits and assurance services. The broad areas of his background, his experience, is handled bank, insurance, mutual funds, manufacturing, NBFCs entities. The vulnerability assessment techniques that he has done and the penetration testing is a very, very well renowned. He has done at device levels, application levels for very leading banks and central government websites, state governments as well. The brokers, pension funds, authorities, and software companies is very well received. And he is expert at pre-audits and compliance reviews. And even the IT Act, many e-commerce companies and many chartered accountants are auditing companies who have e-commerce they need to be aware of the IT Act 2000, and he does the IT Act 2000 work relating to forensic analysis and investigation, and data center and DR site audits, that is your disaster recovery site audits, your business continuity plan. Assessments. This is only a brief of his person with extensive experience in an area which is normally not traveled in accountants. So we are very lucky to have him with us. Thank you so much, Mr. C. Chandrasekhar, for joining us. I think sir is disconnected again. He is not joined back. Chairman, are you available?
Yeah, I just got a message that he's having some connectivity issues. He'll be joining any minute.
Sure.
So let's wait for him to join.
Sure.
I think there is a heavy downpour of rains here in Madurai. I don't know how about Chennai.
Not at least as of now, nothing. So I request participants, please. We are just waiting for our panelist to just join us. He had connected, but I think he's got disconnected.
So they say Mysore is also got heavy rains. Friends, we have given the feedback link after the program is over. don't forget to share that. And we have also shared the links for the materials. All those materials whom the speakers have agreed we have shared. Few of the speakers did not want to share the materials that we have. That is with them, we have not got that. And also you can write to us, I mean, through the form of any suggested topics you have for the forthcoming CP. We'll be happy to receive your inputs and plan definitely some CP meeting on the topic you want us to do. And on the tomorrow's session as well, you'll be getting a separate link before 1 p.m. If you do not get, you can write to sarccp@icai.in, but otherwise you'll be getting a separate link for tomorrow's program as well. I'll just try to talk to them and get an update, Abhishek.
Sure. I also request all the members do share your feedback. I think the link has now been shared in the chat box. Links, of course, the feedback form. Also give suggestions for CPE programs. If you like any specific session, specific program that you think will be of a larger interest or a personal interest also, please do share it with us. We are more than happy to go through the same. We have organized many programs based on the feedback we have got from the members. So please do continue to share with us. We are happy to try and give the best for the benefit of our members.
I think he has his some connectivity issues in the internet, so he's trying to join. It's the latest update. Technology, with all its advantages, has its disadvantages too.
There's no better place to highlight that rather than the technology conclave.
No, technology, when you need it the most, it will somehow show its colors by playing around with you. Maybe we'll break for 2 minutes so that people can refresh and join back. Friends, we just checked his internet is completely down. He's trying to reconnect through some other devices. We'll wait for a few more minutes. I've asked the third session speaker to hurry up. He'll be taking at least few more minutes, 20-25 minutes. So we'll just take a call in next 5 minutes and give a break in between and see that we are able to compensate it by little later also. Friends, I've requested our moderator CA Pattabhiram sir to join so that he can share his thoughts. I remember he taking an interesting session on happiness in digital era. Maybe he can pull something from that and share his experiences with us. So we have to pay the moderator double, Abhishek. Take care of it.
Definitely.
I just call him. I just sent a message. I better call him and tell. In fact, Pattabhiram sir has registered himself as a delegate for this program. So he got on his mobile actually. So I requested him to come through his laptop again. So somebody says it rarely happens. We are game for it. DC and Abhishek are good speakers too. Why not take it forward? Not today, but
So these are specialized topics. We've got specialized speakers, and coincidentally, Pattabhi sir also happens to be a caller in this occasion.
Member says we should have some backup plan for these pre-scheduled sessions. We will have some recording kept ready next time so that we can play for 10-15 minutes, maybe some institute latest activities. I think Pattabhiram sir is calling. In fact, meantime, I'll share the links which I shared yesterday on this Excel program by our institute. It's a wonderful program. I did go through it 2 days back. It is Excel beyond numbers. Some member is asking about audio issues. It is only for you. We request anybody who's got any issue with audio or video, please log out and log in. Things should be fine.
Hello.
Pattabhiram sir, your voice is echoing and we are not able to see you.
1 second.
Yes, you are visible, sir. Now in visible mode.
Yeah, I've just put off my mobile. I think the echo is because of that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
DC, just give me 1 minute. Huh?
Yeah, sure, sir. Sure.
No, AC.
Pattabhiram sir, we request you to share your thoughts on technology or some inputs from that happiness in digital era.
We will do some question answer here. You ask me questions, I'll answer.
Oh my God.
You ask me questions, I'll answer.
Pattabhiram sir has become a stereotype villain or hero who can only do similar roles now.
Yeah. All of which is because of DC.
No, I will request members to shoot their questions and I'll take it.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Yes. You can put the questions in Q&A so that I can take it up with Pattabhiram sir. Sir, going back to this coding thing, what we were discussing that time.
Yeah.
I remember Steve Jobs telling that to his son, he didn't give the gadget till he was 16 years of age.
Absolutely, that's correct. That's correct.
But today, okay, 5-6 years, I understand it is too early. But at least, does it not help them to, understand things better with this audio, video things available? I remember my brother's daughter who takes a mobile and she knows the YouTube and the videos she wants to watch and all those things. Does not actually that develop their skills to a smaller extent?
It does. It does develop. There is no true opinion about that. I still remember during my school going days, there was a kid, 2.5 years old. He couldn't speak. I don't know whether you remember, whether you were, young enough or old enough. Those days, there used to be an LP player, which you kept on the record and songs used to get played. Now, the LP in our house never had a cover. Okay. So it was all black. But this guy, if he wanted a particular a particular LP, he would exactly be able to pick that up out of 100 things that look alike. what I'm trying to tell you is that kids have skills. The moment that they show their skill in coding, my worry is that parents will start pushing them to do. And if they start pushing them to do, pressure will build up. When a kid watches a movie, be it on YouTube, a clipping on YouTube or whatever, I think the pressure on the kid is not there significantly.
Okay, it is on the same front. Somebody is telling, I would like to ask about the claims being made by White Hat Jr. I think they're exaggerating, misleading, and against natural justice. Your views, please.
I don't want to comment on Baiju because all said, I have seen some WhatsApp messages that were shared with me a couple of days back in about exactly what he was telling. But I think I have a lot of respect for Baiju for what he has done in the education field. I don't want to say what they are, how they are, but I have personally not believed strongly in the fact that you must start pushing kids who are in class 4, class 5, class 6 to start preparing for their IITs. No, you put enormous pressure on them. And that's not that. And ultimately, you just don't know. These guys will not even go and work there. Look at several IIT guys like Raghuram Rajan, just to give an example. He ultimately goes and works in the World Bank, which essentially means that engineering has done nothing to it. So at that age, it is unfair to ask people to make choices.
Just to supplement you, sir, I had a classmate of mine in school.
Yeah.
To the school used to top comes into margin. Finally, what is when it came to his board exams, his marks were very moderate, but he was very confident of the IIT. But unfortunately for him, the IIT doesn't even score. So he was stuck because he completely put his focus on that, and he lost out on his school marks, school grades, and he got caught by not getting into IIT eventually. So it led to a very, very, difficult position that he was in.
And that's like putting all your eggs in one basket. I think no offense to parents, I think today's generation of parents are a little more clear in their minds that it is all right to carry a profession which is not engineering, which is not medicine, which is not law, and maybe increasingly not even chartered accountants. That means there is a role, that means there is a world outside these four. A lot of Indian parents are beginning to realize that. And I think that's a good trend.
Sir, on this same thing, how relevant is today to let children learn cyber security issues, since most of them are exposed to digital world at very young age?
According to me, it's 100% important. In fact, I'm right now working with an organization which is, of course, which is working on educating young kids about what are the risks that are involved in when they go online. Okay, my role is, of course, largely to convert that into readable material. Okay, in terms of getting to know what risks that are involved, how they would possibly be putting many of their personal information into trouble. I'm also working along with an IS professional in terms of trying to tell people what are the various areas of data leak, personal data leak in multiple verticals that we are. I noticed somebody here talking about IT extension to all areas, how safe that is. Yes, there is a lot of issue relating to data privacy. And like you asked, it's absolutely important that kids from a very young age get to know the importance of what is being safe on the internet, how not to be bullied on the internet, and how to present oneself on the internet.
Yeah, I think we have CA Chandrasekhar sir who has joined.
Okay.
His video is not visible, sir. If you are able to connect us through audio, we can check. And then Chandrasekhar sir, if you can unmute yourself, or you want us to do. Sir, I unmuted yourself. Can you just speak?
Am I audible, sir?
Yes, Chandrasekhar, you are audible. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry. There's some
No,
outside.
we understand, sir. No issues. No issues.
Good evening, sir. Yeah, if can.
Yeah, I will do it. I will do it, Chandrasekhar. Just give me a minute. I will do it. I will do that.
Okay, so good evening and sorry about the delay. While Mr. Jain started sharing the PowerPoint, I'll give a Action Act or Bill 2019, which is very likely to become a full-fledged the next few months. We have heard about a legislation called as the GDPR, which really revolutionized the way e-commerce companies look at data privacy. So India was long overdue to have a legislation of a similar nature. There were a few drivers to this, which really pushed the Indian government to bring in this legislation. While the press broadly holds it as privacy issues concerning Aadhaar or the Unique Identification Authority, that has been one of the reasons. The real reason was that the European Union, which brought in the GDPR legislation, they brought in a clause which said that any company which deals with data pertaining to citizens of the European Union, they need to be in a geographical state which either adopts GDPR or has a legislation of a similar nature. So if you look at the background to this, in India, where processing and continue to process data pertaining to individuals who reside in the European Union. So when GDPR came about, one concern was that if the Indian BPOs are pushed to a circumstance where the Union says that we do not have a legislation similar to GDPR and hence no data can be processed in India, that would have been a real chaos as far as their businesses are concerned. The Indian government in 2018 came up with a bill called as the Personal Data Protection Bill 2018. It has its origin in a committee report called as the Sri Krishna Committee Report, Justice Sri Krishna Committee, Supreme Court Justice, who did a lot of groundwork on bringing about this legislation. And subsequently, in 2017, 18 was the draft bill. In 17, there was an interesting case which came up in court, called as the Puttasamy case. Again, a retired Chief Justice, retired Justice of the Supreme Court of India, he challenged the Union government about the privacy, right to privacy being a fundamental right under the Constitution. In a landmark judgment, the Supreme Court, amongst other things, held that right to privacy is a fundamental right under the Constitution. But the Supreme Court also observed that there is no legislation in place to protect the privacy of data pertaining to individuals. When the Tatas went to the court in the infamous Neera Radia case, where a lot of data relating to personal telephone conversations, which was held by the Income Tax Department with the Tata Group, they had tapped a lot of telephones pertaining to a lot of senior executives of various organizations, and that infamously came out in the public. And at that time, the Tatas went to the Supreme Court saying, while the government had a right to listen in on conversations, they had no right to publish that data to the media, and they said that they have a fundamental right to privacy. At that time, Ratan Tata made a very important statement saying, as a country does not have a privacy legislation and we are unable to take it forward. Under all these circumstances, given this background, we had Aadhaar coming into play, where a lot of political pressure was on the government to come, which would protect the privacy of the data that they collect from us. And overnight, right, each one of us suddenly became aware that we have a right to privacy. Right? As a society, if you compare what we have in our country with what is there in Europe or in USA, we have very rarely valued privacy as a right. Right? It has actually it has been the other way around. Right? If you look at US or in Europe, a health record pertaining to an individual, if it is by mistake published or made available to someone else, the penalties are too high. In India, we have never had that kind of societal background, or we have never had that kind of a thought till Aadhaar came up, and suddenly, thanks to all the political pressure, we started realizing that we also have a right to privacy, and it's a fundamental right under the Constitution. In this background, the government has come up with a law, Personal Data Protection Bill, originally 2018. It lapsed, and in December 2019, it was formally presented as a bill tabled in the Parliament. It has now received the first level approval of the Standing Committee. It is being evaluated for the final round, and we hope that it will become a law in the near future. So can you just move on to the next slide? If you look at the terms of reference to the Sri Krishna Committee report, which forms the basis for the Personal Data Protection Bill or the Act, it says to unlock the digital economy while keeping data of citizens protected. I think that the government has realized that any sort of control that we bring on data will have two ramifications. One, it ought to protect privacy of individuals. At the same time, it can also act as a deterrent for a lot of e-commerce transactions to take place. So they said that we need to have a middle path where we realize that data is important for analysis, data is important for a lot of marketing to be carried out. At the same time, it cannot be at the cost of privacy of an individual. So they came up with a very sort of a contradictory scope which said to unlock the digital economy, which means they are very clear that data will have to be utilized, but at the same time, keeping the data of the citizens secure and protected. So this was a very challenging task, and the Sri Krishna Committee went through it. They have published a very, very detailed committee report, which I think is much more deeper than the act that we have in the bill that we have in front of us today. Can we just go forward, please? So we, as the Personal Data Protection Act 2019, I have always held and believed that this has two implications for us. One, as an individual, as a citizen of the country, we bothered about this because it involves each one of us. As a professional, we have a lot of opportunities which are going to open up once this legislation comes in. Companies need to recognize this as a key legislation. We'll see later the implication. The measures need to be taken to adopt legislation. It's going to apply to the whole of the country, and the next sentence is very interesting. It says that it will also apply to data processed outside the country. A similar stand as to what GDP can as far as the European Union is concerned. So the legislation says that if the data analytics part or the data processing part happens outside of the country, it still needs to comply with this legislation if it pertains to data principals who reside within the country, which means if it is data pertaining to individuals, citizens residing within the territory of India, it does not matter whether the data is processed within the country or outside of the country. It might look a little different to see why does a legislation need to cover something that happens outside the country. If you look at most of these e-commerce players, especially search engines like Google or Amazon or Flipkart, who do a lot of e-commerce transactions, they have a lot of data processing which need not necessarily happen within a territory or a territorial jurisdiction of one country. If you look at Google, they had a case which they fought in the Bangalore High Court, the Bombay High Court several years back, where the first argument that they took is any litigation pertaining to Google as a search engine, there is no jurisdiction in India because Google is headquartered in USA. In France, there was a case against Yahoo for selling certain things online which affected the sentiments of certain society. They sold memorabilia, World War or the Nazis, which affected a few segment of the society. They were taken to the court, and Yahoo argued that Yahoo has no presence in France. They are headquartered in US, and if you want to fight a case, you'll have to come to US, which essentially really puts off a lot of legislations, and most organizations, most of the litigants may not really want to pursue a case outside the country. So if you look at here, we had a similar with most of these online platforms, search engines, marketplaces, and e-commerce. So the government of India, through the Information Technology Act, extended the jurisdiction of the information outside of. Now, personal data protection bill, they want to cover any processing pertaining to data which pertains to an individual of wherever it is processed, this legislation is going to apply. This is called as extraterritorial jurisdiction. Now, the validity of this, how we are going to enforce this, will really depend upon the kind of political relationship that we have with different countries. But this is an enabling clause which can really help the government to go and pursue litigation required against organizations who are not really headquartered in India. Can I just move forward, sir? So we have two scenarios: data of individuals being processed outside of India, foreign companies, data being processed in India. It squarely applies to data being processed in India. And an interesting part is this legislation, not just the private sector, it also covers the government entities, which means the state government, the central government, accountable for data pertaining to Indian citizens if they process the data, personal data. Of course, there are a few exemptions provided under this legislation, but it covers the entities which are not just in the private sector, but it also covers this state and central government, which means the income tax department, the register of companies, any place where personal data is sort of aggregated, right, all these entities are covered. As far as a foreign entity is concerned, they give us three scenarios. They say either the business is carried out in India, which means they are covered. A systematic activity of offering goods and services to data principals in India. You and I will be the data principals about whom the data is being collected, profiled. And if they profile the data pertaining to Indians, the activity of happens within the country. The Europe has a similar clause in the GDPR, which actually has put a lot of pressure on a lot of entities which would otherwise not be covered under GDPR. Let's take a scenario where a person, the European Union, a citizen of the European Union, a resident of the European Union, he travels to the United States. He stays in a hotel in United States, and as part of his visit or stay, he shares some data with the hotel which is personal in nature or which is sensitive in nature. For example, some details relating to his address, his passport, or some other detail which can help anyone identify that individual. Now, the actual activity of data collection and happens in United States as far as this transaction is concerned. But because it pertains to a citizen of the view that has been taken is even those entities need to comply with the GDPR provisions to the extent deal with the data of citizens of the European Union. It is so it's not just with other organizations, international associations, social organizations who are headquartered in some part of the world, but they handle data pertaining to the European Union. Now, all of them are squarely covered under this legislation. The Indian legislation is trying to do a similar kind of an exercise. So they are sending out a message clear to all these e-commerce and online portals that if you are processing data pertaining to Indian citizens, wherever the processing takes place, you are bound by legislation. Next slide, please. Having said that it covers personal data, they also provide a certain sort of an exclusion. They say that it's okay to process data in an anonymized format. Now, what is anonymization? How do you go about anonymizing data? There are some already available solutions on anonymization. Basically, anonymization, in a very simplistic term, removes the reference to that individual. That means if you look at the data, even though it is a personal data, you will not be able to trace it back to a particular individual. For example, if you look at the Aadhaar numbers that are shared today, the Unique Identification Authority, they came up with a solution which said, let us not share the Aadhaar number, but we will anonymize it in such a form. It will not draw direct reference to the individual to which it is associated, to whom it is associated. So that is what is called as anonymization. This is not encryption. Encryption is simply converting data into a format readable. Anonymization, on the other hand, removes the link between the personal data and the individual, so that even if the data is viewed like a token, they will create another layer on top of it, that even if you view the data, you will not be able to correlate that this data pertains to a particular individual. That process is called as anonymization. Now, how does one go about doing anonymization? There are several options which are available, but in the Indian context, the legislation envisages that there will be an authority who is going to be appointed, a very, very powerful authority for data privacy, called as the Data Protection Authority of India. In short, they are called the DPA. Once this authority is appointed, once it's constituted, we are going to have a separate entity, a separate department under the central government who will monitor all the compliances relating to privacy, especially for large entities whom we will see a bit category as somebody who is aggregating a lot of personal data, like banks, insurance companies, and mutual funds. They will have an authority on top called as the Data Protection Authority of India. So the standards of anonymization, though commercially they are already available, we'll have to wait till this authority is constituted, and they will come up with a set of probable solutions data. The reason why time on this is a lot of organizations already do have a lot of sensitive data with a lot of privacy related with them. Some are not even aware that they hold some sensitive data because it's part of their business process, and it is rarely looked up as something which can cause some significant impact to them in terms of risk. But once it comes in, they're going to have a lot of retrofitting to be carried out on their systems. There is an audit which is proposed under this legislation. There is a data privacy officer who will have to be appointed. So this is going to actually create this both from an operations and an IT perspective to be able to retrofit all these controls into their systems which already hold a lot of personal data. For example, if you'll have to anonymize some information that an organization already holds from an architecture, from a security architecturing point of view or an IT architecture, that's really a big challenge because they have never ever been used to these kind of controls as part of their business processes. Can you just move forward, sir? So there are three key terms that we need to understand. Who is a data principal? All of us are data principals because it is about us that the data is collected and processed by these entities. Then they say data fiduciary. A fiduciary, as the name suggests, is a person or an organization in whom we entrust this personal data. So if you share your data with a bank, if you share your data with an insurance or with any other entity, they become the data fiduciary, or you entrust this data with this entity. Now, if it stops with this, the challenges are lesser. But as we know, most organizations outsource a lot of data processing activity. For example, today, insurance industry, if you look at claims, are the policy printing is being done by a third party. If you look at mutual funds, the registrars are someone else. Some of the transaction processing is handled by a third party, which means beyond the fiduciary, the data today flows to who is called as a data processor. Most of the Indian entities, the BPO industry, falls under the category called as data processors, which means the data is being collected by an entity, but is actually being processed by someone else. Now, as a data principal or a person who shares the data with a data fiduciary, we rarely even know that the data that we share with an organization is being shared with someone else downstream. So under this legislation, they have thought through 3 levels. One is the data principal, which is you and me, the data fiduciary with whom we actually share the data in trust or for a business purpose, and in turn may be processed by a third party called as a data processor. An interesting thing that we need to note at this point is this legislation applies only to natural persons, which means as a corporate entity, you can have confidential data pertaining to your entity, but you cannot have a data which you say affect. So privacy is always linked to a natural person, a living being, a person who is living and about whom some data is being collected. That is what they call as a natural person. In the European Union, because this legislation is already a bit old and they have implemented it a few years back, we have already had litigation come up which are trying to establish that even a person who is deceased, his data can be covered under data privacy. So we'll have to wait for the outcome of that litigation. But as of now, it only covers natural persons, which means a corporate cannot claim that their privacy is affected. A corporate can only claim that confidential data is lost. They cannot claim that privacy is affected. Considering this and a few other things, a parallel legislation has also come up now. A bill has been, a draft bill has come up, which is called as non-personal data protection. What we are seeing is personal data protection. Then came up a question, if anonymized data is misused, what happens? So the government has come up with another legislation now, or proposed legislation called as non-personal data protection. Though it is still very early, it will take at least a few years for it to go through. But I just want to convey that government is looking at protecting data much more seriously than ever before. Next slide, please. Broadly, there are 2 classifications which are envisaged. One is called as personal data and another is called as sensitive personal data. So which means for this act to apply, first and foremost, you will have to establish that there is some personal data involved. And what is personal data? Relating to natural persons, directly identifiable, any characteristic or trait. To define sensitive personal data, which they say is even more riskier if it falls in wrong hands or is misused. So they have classified a lot of things under sensitive personal. Surprisingly, financial data falls under sensitive personal data. So we are not really sure, right, how this is going to pan out, for the simple reason that if you start looking at financial data as sensitive personal data, which means most of the work that you and I do in terms of accounting or finance related work, either pertaining to the clients or as part of advisory function, that all of that will get covered. Of course, the focus shall be health data, right, biometric data, and a few other things. So the law looks at or proposes to have 2 different categories. One is called as personal data and sensitive personal data. The distinction lies in the fact that sensitive personal data is considered even more important. If it is misused or if there is a risk of data breach, the impact is much greater. Next slide, please. A data fiduciary, like we said, is a person, is an organization, right, which determines the purpose or means of processing the data, which means you share the data with a bank. They determine how the data is going to be processed. The bank becomes a data fiduciary. Based on the volume of data that a fiduciary handles, they envisage classification called as significant data fiduciaries based on the volume, the sensitivity, the turnover, or the risk. So the data authority, data protection authority, they are going to come up with a classification saying that these institutions, these organizations or entities are not just data fiduciaries, but they are significant data fiduciaries. The moment an entity gets classified as significant data fiduciary, the need to appoint a data privacy officer, need to carry out a data privacy audits, privacy impact assessments, and all of other things pitching. That's where we need to sensitize the corporates, and we do have a lot of professional opportunities coming up. The power to notify lies with the Data Protection Authority, and registration is going to be made mandatory. Next slide, please. So this is the flow. They say data fiduciary is any organization which processes data. Data processor is somebody who acts on behalf of the fiduciary. A principal is a person to whom the data relates, and all of us will fall under the category of the data principal. Personal data and sensitive personal data, they have given a definition. As of now, they have kept it a bit open. They have the authority to include a few more data elements into this. But as of now, it looks as if health data, financial data, and any data pertaining to an individual which can affect his privacy or her privacy is going to be covered under this legislation. Next slide, please. This is probably the most crucial part of the entire legislation in terms of how they have gone about designing this legislation. They say any processing of data should be consent-based processing. This is a major change to how we have looked at data processing thus far. When we share data with a data fiduciary or an organization, we have rarely been consulted or informed about what kind of data processing this entity is going to be taking up, with which entities are they going to further share our data, what is the objective of collecting a particular data. We have very rarely been told. It has always broadly been on trust. But today, under this legislation, they say two things are very important. One is consent and another is called notice. Notice indicates to the data principal what is the purpose for which this data is being collected and what is the end use of this data and where all this data is going to be processed. Consent moved from an automatic consent to a choice-based consent, where they say consent should be something which is clear, informed, free, and capable of being withdrawn. This has raised a lot of issues, especially with online transaction processing, where most of the consent has been what we call as click-through consent. Right? They give you terms and conditions and a checkbox which is invariably already ticked, or they simply say it is already yes, just like an auto debit, and you simply press I agree or an I accept. Now it has moved from that kind of a mode to say that you will have to obtain a consent which is free, which is informed consent, which means you'll have to make it very, very clear and specific what kind of data you're collecting for what purpose. This part is where it has posed a big. Having given a consent, you can go ahead and withdraw the consent and inform that entity that they should no longer hold the data pertaining to an individual. They'll have to delete the data. Or a phrase which has become popular thanks to GDPR, it is called right to be forgotten. Right? Today, we do not have a right to be forgotten in internet space. The moment a data comes up which pertains to us, we very rarely have an option to take the data down. So this is a very right which has never been substantiated by a legislation, but for the first time they are proposing a right to be forgotten under this law, which means having shared data with an online entity or even with a physical entity, it always right to please don't hold any data pertaining to me, don't share data pertaining to me to anyone else, please delete the data. Of course, use a right to receive their service if you choose this option. And that's fine. If a natural person chooses to go with this option, they have an option under this law. This has been severely contested by all these online platforms because they do data analytics even relating to data of customers who are no longer on their portal. In fact, that is of a greater interest to them because that's where they find new opportunities to make sales. So if a customer who has been online with an portal, he decides to log out of that portal, he can write to them saying, please delete all the data that you hold with me. Don't send me any information any longer. Now this is being contested. Naturally, it's going to affect the businesses of a lot of online transaction processing. So they have contested this part. We'll have to wait and see. But the European Union has gone ahead with this part saying that you have a right to be forgotten. Next slide, please. The legislation also proposes what is called as what are the scenarios under which collect and process data. So they call it process limitations, collection limitation, use limitation, so on and so forth. Purpose limitation, collection limitation, so on and so forth. They say when you collect data from an individual, the organization has to respect the privacy of the individual. Data can be processed only for the purpose for which collected. That's called as purpose limitation, which means a bank or a hospital or an institution cannot collect data from you saying that they collected this data to open an account or to record an event and then share the data with a marketing company any longer, unless when they collected the data, they made it very clear to you that they're going to share data for some other purpose and you have given consent. You cannot use the data for any other purpose than what it has been collected for. This is a significant change because this will hopefully stop selling of the process of data sale, which happens for money amongst entities for marketing and other purposes. Collection limitation is also very clear. It says that don't collect any data other than what is really required for you to do the process, which means if a health information is not relevant for a particular website or a portal, or your address or something else is not, ought not to collect the data. That's what is called as collection limitation, only to the extent that is required and nothing further. Next slide, please. I think we have already seen this, which says notice has to be given at the time of collection of data. Notice was absent. We have never been informed what is the objective. They have made it very elaborate now. They say what is the category of data being collected. Currently, they have to designate a data protection officer who is responsible for handling of all this data from a privacy perspective. And as a data principal or about whom data has been collected, you are free to write to the data protection, asking him for clarifications, deletion, modification of the data that they hold on your behalf. And please note, the law has made it very stringent. If the data protection officer does not respond within a stipulated duration, I think they have given him, I think, a few days time to respond. If they don't respond, the penalty is very high. So fiduciaries become accountable for the processes. This is also a major change. In case of a data breach with a third-party service provider, for example, card data is being processed by a entity independent of your bank. If there is a breach in the third-party service provider's place, the banks used to raise up their hands saying that they are not responsible. The breach has happened with a third party. Under the law, it is now very clear the fiduciary is responsible for acts of the processors as well, which means as a data principle, we need to just get in touch or proceed with one entity. We really need to not bother about entities who actually process our data. This is also a significant change. This is going to put a lot of pressure on corporates because as of date, they have at least claimed to have been absolved from responsibility if something goes wrong with a third party or an outsourced entity. This can no longer happen that way. Next slide, please. So the obligations of the data fiduciary processing, the law says process data only for the purpose of what is required. That's purpose limit. Notice we have seen already. collection limitation also we have seen lawful process. So they say don't process data, don't any other entity outside of the territory unless it's backed on consent, lawful processing, accountability, and they are going to be held responsible if something goes wrong. They are also responsible for the quality of the data, which means you can always write to them saying the data that you hold relating to me is wrong, please change it. They even talk about data portability, so that's a major change. They allow the data principals to ask an entity to transfer the data that they hold to another entity. For example, have portability in insurance or in your mobile. Today that they are envisaging a entity where to move from one entity to another, your KYC details can be ported without needing to provide them once again. Next slide, please. So reasonable purpose, grounds of processing. This is also a new approach to ensuring that organizations don't really collect data. So the law says that you'll have to have a full ground for processing the data, reasonable purpose, consent should be present, function of the state, which means if it is required under the law, you are allowed to purpose, you are allowed to process. If you are a state entity, a public sector organization, like a public distribution system, you are allowed to process. If data is collected as part of employment, like HR data, that's okay. That's a fair ground to collect personal data. But most of this will hinge upon consent-based processing, which means HR data is very limited compared to data relating to customers that an organization collects. So it's going to be consent-based processing, which is going to be the center stage of this legislation. Next slide, please. This is of interest to us because this is going to affect each one of us as a data principal. Right to obtain confirmation about data being handled, right to seek correction of data. I think this will streamline a lot of issues which most of us have faced when we find that name with an educational institution is not all right. We keep writing to them asking for correction and they don't do it. Right, under this legislation, they are bound to do it in a defined time frame. So you can seek correction of data, right to data portability. You could ask organizations to move data pertaining to you to another entity in a standard format. You need not really provide all the data to the new entity. But be forgotten. This will be interesting. I'm sure that this will be contested the moment the law comes in. But if this clause comes in, most of these online portals or marketplaces will have. They will lose a significant portion of the data that they are holding. And of course, the right to seek compensation, which we are going to see in the next few slides, fines and penalties under this legislation. Next slide, please. Transparency and principles that they have in privacy by design, like we said, privacy by default, privacy has never been considered. Now today, privacy is by design, which means that you'll have to build in data privacy as a control in every aspect of your business process. There has to be transparency in processing of safeguards like de-identification and right along with anonymization. Data protection impact assessments. This is where there is quite a bit of professional opportunity that's going to come up. We are associated. We need to start looking at what are the kind of personal data that they handle, where data is stored, what is the impact of this data is breached, falls in wrong hands, or is misused. Such assessments are called as privacy impact assessments. It is an assessment carried out to check what would be the impact of a privacy related breach on the organization, what would be the impact of a privacy related breach on the individual whose data is being collected. Assessments are currently not mandated under the law, though a lot of entities carry out assessments. But once this legislation comes in, especially for entities who are going to aggregate a lot of personal data or who already have personal data with them, this audit or is going to be made mandatory. Record keeping audits and appointment of a data protection officer is going to be mandated for significant fiduciary. So abroad, the concept of virtual data protection officers, right, where a professional can act as a data protection officer. They can handle queries relating to data privacy. They can act as a liaison between the corporates and the data protection authority, where the corporates can route any of the impact, any of the breaches, or any of the they carry out the legislative authority through data protection officers. I'm not sure how it is going to evolve in India. Like a virtual CFO, we may have protection officer. It's very, very popular abroad. We'll have to wait and see how it evolves in India. Please. Grievance redressal solution is 30 days. While 30 days might look a bit long, we'll have to consider the fact that most of the entities in India hold humongous amount. So the moment this legislation comes in, just like a Right to Information Act, there will be a plethora of cases which will come up. There will be a lot of complaints which will come up related to misuse of personal data. So we have to wait and watch how this 30 days window is going to be handled by the data privacy officers. And the penalties are very stringent if they don't respond within that stipulated period of 30 days. Restriction on transactions. This the government has already started clamping down. We're very concerned about one fact that the next generation of warfare might be based on how much data how much data a country holds against the other country. As a first step, I'm sure many of you would have also. The Reserve Bank of India has in a guideline which says that none of the transaction data pertaining to transactions happening within the country can be stored outside of the country, which means they have brought in a data line which mandates that data processed by financial institutions relating to transactions which happen within the country should reside completely within the country only. If you look at a lot of transactions on cards, payment systems, some of them are routed through other countries because of their switches being present in the other country, or their host of a cloud service in some other country like Singapore or Australia. Now, these entities are facing enough heat to bring down all the data and store it only within the country. This was faced with a lot of resistance, but ultimately they had to abide by it because the government said that it is not negotiable, which means they are trying to ensure that by holding data pertaining to individuals or of citizens, some other country would not get an undue advantage in terms of an economic advantage of political disadvantage to one country against the other. If data is classified as sensitive personal processed only in a server or a data located within the country, data center located within the country. So this is also causing a lot of challenges. Already the online like Walmart, they contested these kind of provisions, but the government has been very firm. They have been forced to set up local data centers to hold processing data within the country. Next slide, please. This is what actually drew a lot of attention when GDPR came about and penalties, right? The last part of the presentation. Earlier, we did have some penalties and fines, but it was not to the extent that we are going to see now, right? It says contravention by the data fiduciary or a significant data fiduciary, action relating to a breach, data protection impact assessments not being carried out, data audits not being carried out, appointment of a data protection officer not being carried out, failure to register with the data protection authority. The penalty says, of course, 2% worldwide turnover of the worldwide turnover for each breach. Now, 2% of the global turnover, the reason why they brought in global turnover is to cover cities like Google, Amazon, right, who have a lot of transactions which happen not just in one country, but across the globe. Now just imagine they are proposing a penalty or a fine up to 2% for each of the breaches. Right? Now this is very, very significant. In the GDPR's context, the moment the legislation came up for a contravention, and they ended up paying a penalty already, which means from being a revenue collection mechanism for the government, now for the first time, the penalties are becoming a deterrent, especially for these global players for whom 2% of the global turnover can be extremely significant in terms of a financial value. This people believe will pave the way for a lot better compliance rather than looking at a fine or a penalty as something which is so insignificant that no consequences to large corporates. So this is a very, very important clause that the government has brought in, which says it's 2% of the global turnover. Next slide, please. A similar contravention for is up to 15 or 4% of the global turnover. Right? Non-adherence, transfer of data outside of the country. Of course, they have provided under the law, or they hope to provide under the law, a transition provision, because it's close to impossible for organizations data from their global data processing centers to the Indian data processing center overnight. Some of the payment gateways like Visa and MasterCard face this challenge. They still face this challenge. Reserve Bank of India has asked them to delete all the data that they hold outside of the country. That created a lot of challenges because they use this data for several other purposes. So they have provided for a bit of a transition time, but we'll have to wait and see how this really pans out. Next slide, please. I think we can skip this. It's a similar kind of a thing. You can go to the last slide. Yeah, actionable for the corporates. As far as the corporates are concerned, they need to have a review mechanism to collect or where they collect and use the personal data. Currently, most corporates in India do not have this kind of a mechanism. So we can probably help the corporate set up a mechanism of this sort. Revise the format and mode for obtaining consent for data processing. Limit storage of personal data and localize the storage. Localization has already started. It's a major exercise. Spruce up the data security mechanisms. Right? Treat the breach of data security as a major breach, significant incident. Right? We could help them with an IS audit process or a controlled review which can identify. In fact, there is going to be a huge potential simply to list or inventoryize the personal data that each corporate holds. Right? Currently, most corporate inventory of personal that they hold. So as there is going to be quite a bit of opportunity even to help corporates inventoryize the personal data that they hold. It's not an easy exercise. It's spread across a lot of infrastructure, spread across a lot of physical documents that they hold, but inventorize the data items, they're not going to be able to protect them significantly. Last slide, please. So it is for sensitize corporates on impact on such legislation, contribute to the process of mapping data right from collection till disposal, what is popularly known as a data processing life cycle. Be part of the exercise relating to privacy impact assessments. They are going to become ongoing exercises. A role of a data is the law in section 29 to be to carry out in terms of helping organizations do a privacy impact assessment or a data protection impact assessment. The regular information security function is going to only become a little bit more detailed once this comes in. We could also act as data protection officers, like I said, make large scale. There is already a which says we could create a repository for consent. Right? Have a virtual platform scores which everyone can look at, every financial institution can look at. A thought process is there will be a virtual repository where, as an individual, you can give all your consent. Corporates can pick up the consent from there. If you want to withdraw consent, you could withdraw consent in a single. You need not in the corporates about what your preferences are in terms of. So a virtual repository for consent management, not to be a very big business. Once the last slide, please. Thank you very much for hearing, and apologize for the late start due to a technical glitch. Thank you very much.
No, Chandrasekhar sir, no problem. Members can note down the email address and the mobile contact number, so that if you have any further queries, you can take it up with them. And Chandrasekhar sir will be sharing you the questions which have come up also. So those also can be taken up.
Yeah, we'll do it offline. I think we are already into the next
Yes,
session.
we'll do it offline. I'll be sharing you the questions through email to you, Chandrasekhar ji.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
So thank you so much. In spite of the technical glitch, still we have had an excellent session. Thank you so much, Chandrasekhar ji. Yeah, Abhishek will go dive into session 3 right away without much ado. So I request you to formally introduce the speaker, and meantime the speaker can present himself in visible mode and come into the unmute mode. Abhishek, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chairman. Thank you, Chandrasekhar sir. Very lovely presentation. And even though a little and I'm sure you'll take the questions and we'll share it for the interest of the pleasure welcoming the next speaker and introducing him. CA Praveen Kumar, he's a partner and the national head of assurance of this firm. He's a senior members. The CA ISA, and in fact, he's a certified FRS specialist from UK as well. He has been a member of the NACAS, the National Advisory Committee of Accounting Standards, the Accounting Standard Board, the AASB, an expert advisory committee, besides various research groups and committees of SIRC and ICAI. His experience is working on various large number of risk advisory assignments, audits, forensic and fraud investigation, and IFRS transition for corporates. He's a speaker at various professional forums. He's an author as well. He wrote a book on consolidation and IFRS converged with Indian standards, besides giving various papers, articles, and blogs as well. He's a speaker internationally as well. He's presented in Japan, Nepal, Dubai, Singapore. That is why he is saying looks like he's officially qualified chartered accountant. Yeah. So this is I have great pleasure in inviting Chetan to join us today. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Abhishek Murli, for the nice introduction, and I thank the SIRC for the opportunity that was given to address this esteemed forum. Thank you, Dugachan ji, for extending the special invite. It's my honor and pleasure to talk to such an auspicious group. I will go ahead and share my screen. So. Okay, perfect. Okay, awesome. So, and I heard Mr. Chandrasekhar talking a lot about data security, data privacy, and so on. He has literally set the stage for me to address this esteemed forum, and I believe this is the last session, and I should be on time in terms of completing this. So we have a very interesting topic at hand, which is cyber security in the digital age for our profession, the chartered accountancy profession. This profession is such an esteemed profession which is embraced and met many challenges across the journey. And now we are looking at one of the most important challenges, which is cyber security. This is about me, which Abhishek ji spoke about. So I'll quickly get on to the presentation. Cyber security and cyber threats have taken the center stage over the last few years. This is a report from World Economic Forum. So World Economic Forum, every year they come up with the top risks that the world faces, and cyber security and technology risks have been one of the top 5 risks for several years continuously. And in 2020, as you can see, it is again featuring one of the top 5 risks of the world. And it is very, very important. And as Mr. Chandrasekhar ji highlighted, this is not only a concern of an organization, it is becoming a concern of the nation. And my personal mission is to see a cyber safe India, and I'm working towards it. So as you can see, World Economic Forum has highlighted this as one of the top concerns year on year. And in 2020, this is again featuring in the top 5 risks. And in terms of the context for India as such, okay, you can see, the famous survey from Forcepoint, Frost and Sullivan, which says 69% of Indian companies is at risk of data breach. 69% of Indian companies is at the risk of data breach. That's such a high number. And when I went into the details of this survey and several other surveys that was conducted to test what cyber security risk is all about, and to see the level of readiness that Indian companies are, while 70% of the companies almost is at the risk of data breach, not even 50% of those companies are ready to even face a cyber security threat. That is such an alarming stat that I have in hand. We are totally not in readiness to face a data breach or a cyber threat. 1 in 2 Indian firms have already faced their data breach in the past 2 years. This is a report by IBM which says, 1 in 2 firms, have already faced a cyber breach. They have faced the consequences of the breach and, are still recovering from it. The last one, India, among the world, is ranked among the top 5 countries which is affected by cybercrime. So these facts all indicate saying, India is one of the major targets for cyber breach, cyber security, and cyber threat. We have to be cautious than ever. We have to be prepared than ever to ensure, we respond to these cyber threats. We face these cyber threats with confidence. If we face a breach, we'll have to immediately recover from those breaches as well. So it is very, very important, my audience, that we are ready to face a cyber threat. So cyber threats have evolved over period. I've consulted hundreds of companies on cyber threats, the baseline controls that is required to be implemented by these companies and so on. But the threats have evolved over period. It was in early days, they say, people used to have swords. Then they came to the era of guns. Then they came to the era of missiles. Then they came to the era of, using fighter jets and so on. These days, all of that has stopped. It is simple. People sit at their home, initiate an attack, get the benefit they want, and then go ahead. The kind of attacks that people do, the kind of attacks that we face these days have also elevated significantly. the attack sophistication, which was very low in 1997, has slowly evolved over a period. And we face a very high technologically challenging attack weapons used by some of these cyber threat actors. So as members and as guardians of the society, we have to first have the knowledge of what cybersecurity means and, strongly suggest our organizations and our clients to embrace cybersecurity. Some of the recent attacks that our country has seen, this is one of the attack one of the nationalized bank has faced. Number of victims, look at the scale of the victims here, okay? 422 million customer records were exposed to public. The duration, okay, it was just 2 months where the bank has faced this issue, but the scale of attack was about 422 million customer records, where personal information about the customer record was exposed to public. A very large scale audience, in a period of 2 months, such a large scale exposure is possible. Credit cards. I see a lot of people sharing credit cards on WhatsApp, emails, sharing credit card numbers on emails, storing credit card information on cloud drives and so on. This is for you. Credit card information gets exposed. In one of the famous cloud security companies, credit card information got exposed, and the scale of attack was 1.3 million. Credit card is such a sensitive one, it can cause personal damage to you and your organization. Healthcare data. This is one of the very, very famous healthcare organization which faced the attack. And the scale of the attack, sheer scale of the attack is about 6.8 million records, where internet had access to 6.8 million patient records, which spoke about their illness, the kind of, the medication that they were given, the kind of the agony that they went through and so on. It was all out in public. Large social media platform. This is a platform that most of us use day in, day out. And what happened? 600 million records were exposed to public. A simple reason, the server was not protected. 600 million records, most of us use single-use passwords. Our passwords are similar across, various platforms. And this platform exposed passwords of users. A very dangerous one, audience. While all of the above was, about our personal records, personal money and so on, this is of national threat to us. One of Indian nuclear power plant was facing a cyber attack, and it was more of a malware attack. And then there were records exposure there as well. And finally, one of the large audit firms again faced an attack, a breach, and secret emails of clients were accessible in the internet. What is the nature of leak? It's a very simple administrator account compromise, where someone compromised the administrator account and got access to the email server of the large audit firm. So all the while, we were thinking cyber is for technology companies, cyber is for banks, cyber is for e-commerce clients and so on. Now it's right next to us, staring at us, right outside our organization, facing chartered accountants also. So we have to take cognizance of this, be aware of this, and should be ready to face any cyber attack. Our readiness should be in such a level where you should prevent an attack, detect an attack, and if at all the attack is successful, we should recover quickly. This is some of the recent cyber attacks, that our country has seen. Why cybersecurity is important for chartered accountants? Because we hold our responsibilities on twofold. Not only on the client data side, we have our firm data as well. So twofold responsibility. And on the client side, it's our fiduciary responsibility to make sure the data is safe, secure, and so on. These days, any client meetings that we go, the first thing that we get asked is, how robust is your information security? How robust is your cybersecurity controls? Are your employees aware of cybersecurity controls and so on? It is not only important for our client, it is important for us also to save our firm's data. So I had a recent incident wherein one of my friend's firm faced a cybersecurity attack where the data of their server was compromised and all of the records in the server was encrypted, and the attacker literally required ransom for allowing my friend access to his own data, and the ransomware ran into millions of rupees. And okay, we are in a catch-22 situation. On one side, okay, there is a ransomware claim. On the other side, we need the data as well. We took it legally. We kind of went through the legal channels, looked at it, resolved it, and got the data back. But the kind of agony, the kind of problems that we go through in the process, the kind of pain that we go through in the process is humongous, and you cannot attach a value to it. And if you look at the root cause of it, the root cause was very, very simple. Very basic cybersecurity controls were missing in the firm. And as a result of it, he had to go through a lot of these mental pressure more than the loss of the other things, the mental pressure of coming out of this attack. And what was missing? Just baseline controls was missing. Baseline controls was missing. I have a list of baseline controls, okay, we as chartered accountants should embrace, and I have that in the further slides. This is a famous meme, a famous WhatsApp forward that most of us would have seen. Who led digital transformation of your company? It was not the CEO, it was not the CTO, but COVID-19 pandemic situation has forced us to embrace digital to the extent possible. These days, we did not visit client places, we did not go in physical form and then collect data, but we completed audits, filed our annual returns, completed your listed company filings and so on. How did this happen? Because we as audit firms, we as chartered accountants, embrace digital transformation very quickly, and that is in the nature of chartered accountant. We embrace transformation quickly, and great, we have done that because of COVID-19. But while we embrace digital transformation, did we embrace cybersecurity? That's a question to ask colleagues. Did we embrace cybersecurity along with digital transformation? In many cases, when I talk to my friends, when I talk to many of the firms that I deal with, okay, many of the response here is no, cybersecurity is yet to be embraced. Baseline cybersecurity is missing. What are the consequences of this? Yes, on one side we are digital, but we don't have the required controls in place. As Chandrasekhar ji highlighted, the fines and penalties are going to be huge on this. Reputational impact is huge. Given a cyber incident, one incident can literally throw us out of business because it's going to have such a huge reputational impact. So guys, embracing digital is on one side. At the same time, I would recommend each of you to embrace cybersecurity with equal amount of importance, with equal amount of seriousness. What are the top cyber threats that we as chartered accountants face, we as audit firms face? Phishing and social engineering. A very common attack, where someone tries to get hold of our client data, someone tries to get hold of our own firm data. Spyware and malware. The incident that I spoke about was a malware incident where an email was sent, where my friend has accessed an email, and because of that, he went into a ransomware attack. So spywares and malwares is one of the important things that we should take cognizance of. Ransomware, I spoke about this. There are a number of actors in India, outside India, waiting to exploit us, waiting to exploit the digital transformation that we have gone through, and then, hold us for ransomware. Guys, if any of you have faced this situation in the past, my humble personal request and advice would be, do not pay any ransomware for such attacks. There is a proper way to deal with them. There is a proper legal channel to deal with them. If you go through steps 1 till 10 that we have gone through in the past, okay, these attacks can be managed with limited impact on you and the audit firm. Insider threats. Insider threats is about where our employees, our colleagues, very unintentionally or intentionally, leak information outside the firm. Business continuity and recovery, disaster recovery. This was literally put to test when COVID-19 happened. When overnight, all of us were given an advisory from the government that we cannot step into office from tomorrow. The only thing that saved many firms is the robust business continuity and the disaster recovery procedures they had put in place. People who had procedures in place could react fast, and people also embrace digital transformation quickly, and then, put in place certain controls to quickly react to such a pandemic situation. So these are some of the cyber threats, common cyber threats that I face as a chartered accountant, some of my colleagues face, some of the audit firms that we deal with face, and some of you may face. Who's behind all of these cyber attacks, and how can we deal with such attacks? Some of the attacks are perpetrated by outsiders. Some of the attacks are perpetrated by our own colleagues in the firm. Some of the attacks are even very targeted, even by state-affiliated actors, outside the country. Some of the attacks are by organized criminal groups, and some, by the person on the road. So we are in such a age, guys. Everything is digital. Every single penny that we own is digital. Every single data that we own is digital. And the man right on the road, can be an actor, who can initiate an attack on you. How? A hack may be done. A malware may be sent to you. Your weak password may be exploited. People these days use social attacks, social engineering as one of the commonly used ones, especially we being so much active on social media. I know a firm which was attacked because everything about the firm's employees was on social media. I see people posting pictures saying, hey, I'm at this client doing a stock verification. Hey, I'm at this client, for an income tax audit. I'm at this client for a fraud audit, forensic audit, and so on. All of this is something that we post on social media, and we give leeway for the attacker to use this information and then initiate attack on us. Not finally to demean the physical security control that's required. As we embrace digital, physical form of controls should also improve. As typical, what I thought of is, I'll put in place a typical architecture that we have in most of our firms that we deal with. And, what are the points which are at cyber risk? If you look at a typical architecture, we use cloud, we have some of desktops, laptops. These are connected to the cloud using our network components. Every point in this, every component in this network architecture will have to be information secure, will have to have controls in place to ensure that a cyber threat is prevented, detected, or at least responded to. Every point in this, colleagues, not even one point is safe to say that, I have a firewall in place, now I'm safe. No, firewall by itself can cause a lot of threats. Our desktops, laptops, and servers can cause a lot of threats. In the COVID era, in the pandemic situation, we've embraced cloud solutions. And the cloud secure solutions, while it comes with a lot of convenience, it has also come with a lot of threats. And we will have to carefully assess how each of that threat is managed. And as firms, we will have to do an exercise of carefully assessing the information security risks at least once in a year to see what are the control that our firms and we have as chartered accountants. So based on my experience of, consulting hundreds of organizations and firms, including government organizations, including CA firms. At a baseline, I recommend a 7-step process, which every one of us should, at the bare minimum, implement. Starting with, implementing policies and procedures, looking at, user access requirements, password requirements, hardening your infrastructure and application, looking at your antivirus patch management controls, backing up data and building up other resilience controls, ensuring that our employees are cyber aware, teaching them on a continuous basis, not only on technical updates about accounting standards, auditing standards, and so on, giving them updates about cybersecurity, what are the recent events in cybersecurity, how we can improve the cybersecurity posture of the firm, and so on. And the final one, not the least of the ones, which is doing a regular vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. I believe, guys, the cybersecurity threats that I spoke about, most of them, the cybersecurity incidents that I spoke about, most of them could have been prevented, could have been detected on time if these baseline controls were in place. These baseline controls can avoid 90% of the attacks that has happened in the past. It can provide you reasonable level of assurance that you have baseline controls in place. So this is a 7-step process that I would suggest to take you through a baseline security requirement. I'll detail some of these in the following slides, as to how we can embrace each of these. The first one is policies and procedures. Chandrasekhar ji in the previous one highlighted the importance of inventorying, all the data that we hold. It is not only data, inventory, all points of information security assets that the company owns, and then define what are the threats that each of the assets face, and then define what are the baseline information security controls that we would want to implement to protect us against each of the threats. And all of this in the form of policies and procedures. These policies and procedures will act as guiding document for you throughout your security journey. It would inventory your IT assets. It would define and design policies. It would benchmark with leading practices. And nevertheless, you should also have a process of doing periodic reviews of these policies and procedures. Some of the common domains where policies and procedures are required, starting from your user access management. The second one is the most critical one, which I recommend for most of my colleagues in the firm, in our own firm and in the other firms. Client data lifecycle management. Every firm, in my opinion, should clearly document a client data lifecycle management, which will clearly define how do we collect data from the client, how do we use that data for the work, how do we process that, how do we store that and then archive the data, and finally, how do we archive and remove the data from our systems. These procedures are fundamental, bare minimum requirements that we should embrace. So tomorrow, even if there is a client requirement, a client ask, we can use this to clearly demonstrate saying, okay, hey, I have a documented policy and procedure and a well-defined, thought out process in place to manage my client data lifecycle. I'll highlight the important ones in this. Removable drive management. When I studied a survey, one of the things that I came to know was, about 50% of your information security data exposure comes only because of removable drives. These can be your pen drives, these can be your mobile devices and so on. These can be your hard disks, portable hard disks and so on, which contain loads of data, but least of the controls. We will have to have clear procedures and security controls defined to ensure, removable drives, the portable drives that we hold are very well managed. User access and password requirements. Again, this is one of the common vulnerability which is exposed by hackers. And okay, this is one of the common place where we go wrong. If you look at it, okay, there was a survey that was conducted, and the most commonly used password is the digits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is holding the rank 1 for 10 years now. For 10 years now, we have so much of awareness sessions. We have so much of data exposure. We have so much of threats that is coming day in, day out on the media, on the newspapers. All of us understand the importance of cybersecurity. But end of the day, we do not implement it. We don't take it seriously until we face an attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the commonly used passwords for 10 years in a row, and it is holding rank number 1. And you can see the commonly used password, the top 10 ranks that it holds, starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to ABC 1, 2, 3. And I've also given you how much time will an attacker take to decrypt or brute force a password like this. A 0.29 milliseconds is what an attacker will take to brute force such an easy password. And I've done this personally. I've demonstrated this to many CXO groups, many CEO groups, just tell them saying how vulnerable they are. Not only they are putting their personal data at risk, they are putting their company data at risk, they are putting their client data at risk, thereby putting the entire environment at risk. So it's very important, guys. Though these may sound foundational, these may sound preliminary, these may sound, okay, bare minimum, but most of the attacks come in because we don't maintain these bare minimum controls. Infrastructure and application hardening. Basic set of controls. Disable your default accounts. Change your passwords of default accounts. Disable unnecessary vulnerable services. These are some of the things, which we can easily implement without any extra cost. All that is required is the time and money, time and focus to implement these controls. Cybersecurity awareness. The last but not the least, where we go wrong. And a statistic says 75% of the attacks is not because of systems, not because of your applications, not because of your network. It is because of us as humans, not because we do it intentionally. Most of the times it is unintentional error, because of which we see the biggest of cybersecurity breaches. And this is the most weakest link that I would suggest we can clearly, without any extra cost, we can clearly fix. I believe along with all the technical trainings that we do for our firms and for our employees, cybersecurity and information security should be taken very seriously, and concerted effort should come from us who are leading the firms, leading our employees, leading our clients, to take enough focus on this and deliver enterprise security and make sure that our clients, our employees are aware about cybersecurity weaknesses. The screen on the other side, okay, this is a common scene that I see even in most organizations where, okay, you have a password, well written, neatly written. The most of the secure password, 10 digits, alphanumeric, pasted on the computer to say this is the password of this system. Okay, all of the information security controls, the investments that you make goes for a waste if you do not have enough information security awareness. So these are some of the baseline controls, okay, I would suggest that we as firms literally embrace and then adapt as we move along, especially with the digital age. the amount of digital transformation that we embrace will improve as we move along. We will go even more digital. Our entire firm can move into paperless forms. And one of the important things that, guys, I want you to invest focuses on cybersecurity. Overall, just 3 takeaways from the entire presentation. 1, cybersecurity has taken the center stage. It has been the buzzword for many, many years. It has been the buzzword for many, many years, but without adequate focus. World Economic Forum has highlighted this in their reports continuously for several years. I would want us as professionals to take this seriously. Cyber controls are becoming a baseline expectation, not only of our clients, will become a baseline expectation of regulatory authorities also. Even regulatory frameworks will be issued by ICAI, suggesting baseline cyber controls that we as chartered accountants and firms should implement. Finally, once you think about cyber security controls, define cyber security controls, implement them, and monitor them on a frequent basis. This 3-step process will enable we chartered accountants be cyber aware, to make sure to give confidence to the community at large that we professionals take this seriously and act as guardians to the society. Thank you for the time and opportunity. And any questions, I'm always available, Kim, to answer any questions.
Yes, Praveen, thank you so much. Thanks for all the enlightenment. There are a few questions which we will take it. Selva, if you can give me the presenter rights. Yeah, first question is a general question which many of them have the doubts. Whether accessing Gmail using the Gmail app in my mobile, be it Android or iOS, how safe it is? And this applies to a lot of applications which we use in the mobile.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Okay, I thank Chandrasekhar who asked this question. If you look at, what we are adopting here is a shared responsibility model. There is one amount of responsibility on the Gmail app service provider. There is an equal amount of responsibility with us as users to protect the mobile device that we have. Many a times, 90% of the times, the vulnerable area is not a credible application like a Gmail app, but the device that we use, where device is not updated, patched up with the latest security patches. We do not have proper security controls in the devices and so on. So the weakest link there, in my opinion, is not the app by itself. It is more the device that we use. Hence, I strongly recommend that enough mobile security controls are put in place.
Praveen, I'll add to that. We have seen we have all these antivirus installed in the computer systems. But when it comes to mobile, it is left free. Any time, if you even try to install it, slows down your operations, and then one time you remove that antivirus. Your thoughts on that?
That's a great question, Dugarchan ji. Installing antivirus is a baseline requirement, is a bare minimum requirement. It is required. There are a lot of tools that is common nowadays, Dugarchan ji, which we can use, which will not slow down your mobile device, but can provide the required amount of security. We should do a careful evaluation of the tool and then install a credible tool there. There are tools in the market which can provide us that security.
Next is by CA Sunil Kumar. How to recover the data which is bitlocked by the hackers?
Sunil Kumar ji, I can tell you how not to do it by paying ransomware. That is not how to do it, but there are other ways to, recover the data, especially, when you're attacked by a ransomware. My humble suggestion and request to the entire audience group is, as soon as you face an attack, reach out to a cybersecurity expert asking for two things. One, technical advice as to how this can be resolved. Two, legal advice as to how you can proceed forward. Do not attempt to do anything with the infrastructure, the computer which was locked by hackers. Do not pay ransomware. By paying ransomware, you're not only falling into a trap, you're also encouraging the cyber crime, and they will do more and more of this. So there are, Sunil Kumarji, there are ways and means where we have helped our clients in the past, to recover data, especially when it is logged by hackers, and we've sought legal help and the help of also regulatory authorities to solve this amicably.
Okay. Next one by CS Shashikant Rao. Considering the cybersecurity issues, should we move to cloud-based accounting packages where the security is much higher levels with adequate password controls? I will add to it. There has been always an apprehension that my data getting leaked to another third party. How good or safe it is? You can add to that also.
Sure. This is a classic question. Okay. We as a country in India, we started embracing cloud as a technology early 2010s. That is when, we spoke about cloud, we started embracing cloud. A very honest opinion to this group, the cloud security controls are much, much more robust than what we have in the server within our office. So from a security control standpoint, the cloud security controls are much, much, much robust. Again, a very careful vendor selection should be done. I know cloud security vendors who are great on one side of it. I know cloud security vendors who have the worst of the controls as well. So a very careful evaluation of those is required, especially when you want to move something sensitive as an accounting package to the cloud. Like how Chandrasekhar ji identified, this is not only for security, there are certain regulatory obligations also surrounding it. Like, for example, there are a number of regulations where you cannot store data outside India. So in a cloud, you'll have to exactly know, cloud is another server, right? It is not literally on the cloud. It's another server. It is also stored somewhere there. All that you're doing is accessing the data through internet. So you'll have to do a careful evaluation of the vendor, review the controls, review their security controls, not only once, but repeatedly. Every year, we'll have to do a careful evaluation to see what kind of controls did my cloud security vendor have. Get reports from them. There are very famous reports called SOC reports, which are cloud security vendors publish. Read through the SOC reports. That will give you a fair understanding of what kind of control that they have implemented. You can compare one security vendor controls to the other security control vendors, and then take a careful evaluation to see which cloud security vendor that you want to go with. So that's a careful evaluation that you'll have to do. It is not that Google's are better than Amazon's or Amazon's are better than Microsoft's. Every need is very different, and go through a careful evaluation, and you can narrow down to the right vendor. And to answer Dugachan G's question, yes, when we use cloud, if there are not enough controls, the data can be exposed to the vendor. The vendor can gain access to our data, and it can be used maliciously. That is why when we do a vendor selection, these things will have to be evaluated, and a vendor with enough security protocols should be selected. Please do not take cost as a criteria when you select your cloud security vendor. Go with the vendor who has a lot of functionality and who is providing the best-in-class controls.
Normally, we have seen in the past some alerts that there is going to be a virus attack in the system named as so-and-so. how this gets circulated, and so to say, how sensed? Subramanian Ramaswamy has asked.
Understand. So, okay, a lot of these phishing emails these days go around. Okay. Certainly, okay, I even get a lot of, phishing emails, WhatsApp messages, which literally would act as bait for us to, fall for them. Some of these cybersecurity, the virus alerts that you talk about are these where, okay, people fall for such alerts. Some of these are genuine, some of these are definitely not genuine. So when you get such an alert, verify authenticity of such alerts. These days, Google has wonderful framework to check fake messages, to check such, malicious messages. Use those things, verify authenticity, and then, act on it. Before any of these, do not act on it. And, India has come up with a wonderful agency, which is called Certain. Go through Certain's website, and alerts in the Certain websites are more authentic than any other alerts that you get from any of the vendors, be it the Microsoft of the world or Google of the world. So I can probably in the chat paste in Certain's website, go through that. They have their alerts coming in, go through those alerts. Those alerts are more credible than any other alerts that you would get.
Yeah, I will put few more questions on the screen. Praveen, just give me a moment.
Oh, definitely.
Is it on the screen?
Yes, I think it's coming up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Just give me a moment. I'll pull to the right question which has come. Yeah, this is the one.
Sure.
Sir, when we use paid services from Google or Microsoft, etc., can we rely on the established data security of those companies, or we need to put in additional security measures for email and other services?
Right. Ganesh, thank you for asking this question. Generally, my experience, both these vendors are really good. I personally visited Google's data center. I've reviewed their controls. They are great. Okay, they offer the best-in-class controls. I've done a lot of work for Microsoft. I've reviewed their controls. These both are great vendors. While I again repeat, all cloud services operate on shared responsibility model. One part of the control is with them, while the other part of the control is definitely with you, where you will have to have baseline controls to ensure, that you can definitely rely on the controls on the other side, but baseline controls on your side should definitely be established. Baseline controls on your side should definitely be established. So what I personally recommend is, when you have such vendors, when you especially deal with sensitive data, it is good to implement some more additional layers of control on your end. Like, for example, I have a protocol that whenever I send or receive client data, it is password protected and then sent across. That's a baseline control that you can easily implement without any additional cost, but it requires a concerted effort and a firm-wide decision to do that. And if you encrypt the password, it slightly improves the control environment. So such controls can be implemented in addition to the control that is offered by those vendors. Those two are great vendors. You can definitely rely on those controls.
Yeah, next comes one of my favorite questions. In this digital era, remembering passwords, setting and resetting passwords is a challenge. We use passwords for various platforms, internet banking, credit card usage, ATM, login to income tax website, etc. What is the easy way of managing these passwords?
This is a very famous question I get asked many times. I can tell you with confidence, there is no answer from me, or there is no answer to this question.
Okay,
but
I can give you. Just tell me whether what I'm doing is right.
Yes.
I use a site known as lastpass.com. I think this is the site name,
okay,
which helps you store the passwords. Now, how good or bad it is to rely on somebody else?
Dugarchandji, okay, absolutely a no-no. Absolutely a no-no. Do not ever, store your passwords on a third-party website. Not even an app. Even your mobile phone has a lot of apps which can manage your passwords. Do not ever do it. The way that I manage it, and I suggest to all of the people asking this question is, have a logic of using passwords and have a logic of randomizing your passwords. Okay. Just put yourself in someone else's shoe. If you are trying to find someone else's password, what all things that you will do? All that you'll have to do is to avoid that. So, a very, very simple one. So do not ever store your passwords anywhere. I see a lot of people sharing passwords in WhatsApp, sharing passwords in chat messages, sharing password through Google emails and so on. The moment you send a Google email with a password or a credit card number, suddenly you will see an advertisement in Google saying, okay, want to store password somewhere. How do they know that you're sharing password? Obviously, there is a machine learning algorithm at the back end, reading all your email messages. I'm not saying it's a security threat. Obviously, such sensitive information should never be stored in mobile phones, nor on emails, nor on websites.
So the message is very clear, as Praveen says, it is better to use forgot password and generate it again rather than note it actually.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, and to add what I said, when I said I'm using one of the services, I have not put any passwords which are having any money related things, be it my
absolutely
card, banking. I only meant those, your email sites on the other things. But then if you're using email and there it comes that, it captures your credit card transactions or your banking transactions, then again stay away.
Absolutely.
Put those things.
Absolutely. I'm with you there. Okay. So have a way in which you generate your passwords and just had a randomization to it. I'll give you some examples. Okay, some of the things that I do is, not that, okay, this is not a secret. So this is a common example that I use across my clients. I rotate a combination of text and a number, and the text is usually my friend's name. So I have hundreds of friends, and I start randomizing them with a number. If you use a combination of text, a number, and a special character with this randomization, most likely you will remember it, and most likely you can also now avoid such data hacks.
Next is there any basic structure or a process format to implement a cybersecurity in our organization?
Yes, there are basic set of controls that every organization can put in place, especially, having worked with a number of organizations and including audit firms, I've come up with the list, which is something that I'm willing to share at the last page of this presentation. When it is shared with all of you, you can also find some of the basic set of controls that you can look out for implementation in your organization.
Yeah, I think Sunil has given a suggestion that Quick Heal is having a mobile antivirus application also. In fact, there are so many. It is better you use one instead of avoiding one. I think here Jerome has asked like the exact question which I have asked, so that gets answered actually.
Yes.
Integrity issue. Okay, you mentioned that firewall itself will be a threat. Please elaborate.
See, a classic case. People think I moved to the cloud. Now it's his responsibility to manage security. I was talking to a CEO yesterday. I told him, sir, your security controls are very weak. His immediate response was, Praveen, I'm ready to buy a firewall. Okay, you tell me how much does it cost? Sir, firewall buying will not give you security. It is how you configure a firewall. It is how you ensure, the firewall is up to date in terms of their firmwares. It is ensuring that, you test the vulnerability and penetration of the firewall on a periodic basis. These are some of the ways in which you can make sure your firewall by itself is adequately secure. It's like you having a gate, but the gate is loose enough. So that's how a firewall is.
Many are claiming that they have Tally license on cloud. Is it safe to go for that?
I'm not leaning on a vendor here. If it is not from the original Tally vendor, I would strongly suggest review the controls. review the controls, ask enough questions, or you can audit them. Either of that is possible. I have audited many cloud vendors as part of my customer requirements. You can audit them, ask them the right questions, audit them. Unless you are satisfied, do not rely on any third-party vendor. Relying on Tally itself, I would say that you should audit and ask enough questions. A third-party vendor, a definite, adequate diligence is required.
Vendor certification in terms of ratings for the data security by any independent authority.
We do not have a common framework for this asset in our country. Many vendors are giving some ratings. There is no formal framework or, a common methodology for this. But, there are certain commonly issued reports like the SOC report that I said, where third-party validation of the security controls, which can be relied on to an extent. Nothing like an independent validation from your side. But there are no independent or regulatory validation on data security asset. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah, Abhishek, if there are few more questions, we can take it up, one or two.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One or two more have come. I just asked. CA Jerome has asked, you mentioned about characters in the password. Be alphabetic, or what combination should it be?
So the general suggestion is this: a minimum of 6 characters and an alphanumeric one. So that's the bare minimum one. A minimum of 6 characters, an alphanumeric one. Try and include 1 character at least with symbols. This will largely ensure, even someone trying to brute force will take many months to even hack your password. He will lose interest in it.
The next question is the last question, which has come from CS Sunil Kumar sir, where he asks, is external firewall or is internal firewall?
I would always suggest internal firewall to be in place, because the amount of configuration and security that you can do in an internal firewall is always very much better than an external firewall. So it's internal firewall.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You have completed the questions.
Thank you, Praveen. Before I let Abhishek give the formal vote of thanks, I will take this opportunity to thank 2 people who have helped us in framing the structure of this conference. CA Deepak Kumar and CA Raju Khatri, who helped us to identify the topic, speakers, and Praveen Kumar is one such fight. So thank you, Raju and Deepak, and thank you, Praveen, for your excellent time and excellent enlightenment to our audience.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity that was given to share on this wonderful topic. I'm really passionate about this, and this opportunity has really helped me to talk to this wonderful, eminent audience on this favorite subject. Thank you so much for this. I thoroughly enjoyed the entire session, including the question and answers. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Praveen. Officer for stepping in, and we need the most for being patient with us. We have the technical difficulty with speaker and supportive, gave us energy to do as well. Thank you all. To thank once again our chairman, Sri Dungachan Jain, for the architect of today's program, and the media program, which is very to join again. Tomorrow we have the final day. It starts again at 4 o'clock. We'll be getting a fresh link. You'll be getting a new link. It is not the today's link or yesterday's link. You get a new link by email. Please click that and join for tomorrow's session at 4 o'clock. Thank you all for joining in. Stay home, stay safe, take care.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you.